you guys, I'm talking about them.
And we're live.
All right. I'd like to call to order the first meeting, official meeting of the Oregon City Commission for March of 2023. I would like to have the roll call, Mr. Wiley.
Sure. Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you all please rise and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do not have any ceremonies or proclamations at this particular meeting, but we will be having some at the next meeting. I'd like to call up Carla Laws under item number 4.
Carla Laws, Oregon City. Here, I'll put this closer. I just had a statement real quick about the agenda item later in the evening, and I was going to ask permission if I could just make a little statement and then go into what I was going to get into. Would that be okay?
I don't know.
Okay. I was just going to mention, and you can give me permission to stop if you'd like me to, that I know MOUs are going to be discussed a little bit, and that I won't be able to be here, but I was hoping
Okay,
that...
again, citizen comments are for items that are not on the agenda, so...
Okay. I was just hoping that we could kind of invite the nonprofits at the affected people, but that's just on a side note. Anyways, the reason I wanted to talk was I had requested to look at the new Parks Master Plan, and I've been told that it hasn't been done. I know that you guys haven't seen it yet, which of course you should see it first. But I've been told by several people that it's actually done. And I would love to see it as a neighborhood, volunteer. And just I volunteer for several nonprofits, and it'd be really nice to be able to see that. So I'm just hoping that there'll be an announcement soon, or that you guys get to see it, and that we could see it for public record. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate you guys, and have a great evening.
Well, the master plan will be coming back to the commission for additional reviews.
Okay, so it's on additional reviews, okay?
Yeah, it's not done.
Okay.
Yeah, we have not made any final determination about it. We're still kind of having some discussions about it, and I believe there's going to be another, so you can just nod, Kendall, if you like, so there'll be another touch point by the commission. There'll be some more public input that's coming, and then come back to the commission. I suspect that it probably may have the Planning Commission to take a quick look at it, although it does have land use implications, but we want to have the widest possible involvement by the community. So it's getting there.
Okay. And it'd be nice, for us, some of us profit volunteers, if we could give feedback in the future on things, but thank you very much.
Yep. Well, there are a lot of nonprofit volunteers, including people sitting up here on this.
No, I understand.
So we're all there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been noted by Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else? Oh, yes. Mr. Henderson, come on up.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes. Just come on up, Seth. You can come on up while he's asking the question.
So, Carla, so I guess I have a question, because the rules that we operate under City Commission are far different than the rules we operate under work session. So is this a real work session for the MOUs, or is this just an agenda item on the City Commission agenda? Because if it's a work session, it doesn't follow the same rules. And in our work sessions, we do take, not always, input from the public. In fact, we usually don't, but this commission and the previous commissions have discussed that if we are in work session discussions and there are members of the public that have input to lead us to a discussion or have input on the discussion that we're doing, we've in the past, opened those work sessions up for public comment. So dismissing a public comment about something that's labeled on a work session, which I have still as a commissioner sitting up here, have no idea if that's a real work session or if this is just an agenda item under a commission meeting, because right now, we haven't advertised a work session, I don't think. We've advertised a commission meeting.
Right.
So I don't get why it says work session items. I thought that meant we were talking about a future work session about these items, not that we were having a work session tonight about it. So if we're having a work session tonight about it, and that comment is about the work session, then I want to hear it.
Okay, well, let's get the citizen comment by Mr. Henderson, and then we can go back to the city manager. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. Good evening, Seth Henderson, Portland. First off, I want to say thank you to City Manager Conkle as well as his staff. We were able to submit our Department of Transportation raise grant yesterday, about 65 pages, and ODOT agreed to administer, which took some effort. So the next component of that, and that raise grant specifically addresses Washington, City Street, Abernethy, County Street, Redland, and 213, which is ODOT. The next component of it would be a congressionally directed spending, which is a 5-page application that we've put together and sent a copy of to Tony. It can only be submitted by a municipality, a nonprofit, a tribe. So we're asking that we would have the ability to submit that on behalf of Oregon City. Again, this is going towards public transportation upgrades. It's a $5 million grant. 20% of that, $1 million, is the match. We would be funding that, and ODOT would be able to administer it. The reason I'm bringing this up today is we were notified on February 10th that they were going to open this for applications from February 15th to March 3rd. This is the only meeting within that time period. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm supposed to present to the Two Rivers Neighborhood Association this evening, but I can stick around, whatever works for you guys.
Well, with the commission's approval, I would like to recommend that we put this item under number 9, which is general business, so that we can have a further discussion about it. It's not really, I think, appropriate to have a big, long discussion about it under citizen comments.
Understood.
But that if we put it on put it as a walk-on on the agenda, we can actually have a discussion about it and take some sort of an action if that's what the commission desires. So would that be all right if we move that to item 9?
May I suggest we flip 8 and 9? 8 is
8's going to go pretty quick.
okay.
Let's wait till we get there. I don't think that's going to take that long. Is that okay with you?
I would rather flip 8 and
I'm asking to just get it under number 9, not flipping it. Can we put it under item number 9, general business, for a discussion?
well, yes, yes. But what I was suggesting is we handle that item under item 9 before the public hearing number 8.
Yeah, I'd agree with that because of the nature of public hearings and how they can drag on. So.
I don't think you see a whole pile of people here under that item, but that's fine.
Well, and you were mentioning where we're...
Yeah, he has to go to a neighborhood.
Okay, so let's try and move it up then.
Okay, so we're going to put it under
Thank you
general
for your
business.
consideration.
Okay. I think there's enough background that City Manager Conkle has that he can help us through this, correct?
I have background, yes. It depends
Okay,
what the question is.
so you have some background information. All right, perfect. All right. Okay. So my understanding is that the intent is to have a discussion under 11A. Am I correct?
The intent was, and I apologize if this was not clear, the intent was that when looking at the agenda with the 2 presentations, the consent, and then the public hearing, I thought we would get through this relatively quickly, and there would be an opportunity to do a traditional work session. The last work session was virtual, and we didn't want to discuss the fees virtually, and so I was just trying to bring this forward as it's, been a discussion item for quite a while.
Then why wasn't it listed as a work session separate like we do for every work session? I don't understand why it was, I've never seen a work session,
Right.
folded into a city commission meeting.
Yep.
I think that's deceiving to the public or confusing at the minimum. And so if the public comment is about the work session, specifically about MOUs, which we're discussing, I want to hear comments from anyone associated with any of those 3 MOUs that the city either has signed off or hasn't, because that's going to tell us a lot. So I personally would like to hear that. And if the citizen that's here to speak on that won't be here for the work session, I would like to hear it now.
Are there any other comments before I make a comment?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. O'Donnell.
I agree with Commissioner Smith's position for a number of reasons. One, I do want people present and proper notice given. Second, the very nature of the 2 procedures, whether it be a work session, although we occasionally entertain input from the public, we don't necessarily have to. But more importantly, in a work session, we don't take formal action. We don't take a vote and bring something to a conclusion. And given the depth of with which we'll probably explore this, I think we could do it once. I would not even entertain this as a work session tonight. It can either be an agenda item or not at all. And I do think that the affected parties hopefully were put on notice, and if they read it as a work session, they might feel that they would have limited opportunity to participate. So that's my statement.
Anything?
Well, I would be fine hearing comment tonight. I do, having looked at our emails, I do think that they were aware, or at least several of the parties were aware, because we've gotten several letters in our email just in the last week. So I would be happy to either have the public comment or defer it to another time that we think is more suitable for public notice.
I'll just say I don't want this to be the public's last night to be able to make comment on the topic.
We can't vote on anything.
Well, yes, we can, because we're in a regular meeting.
Well, when we adjourn and go into work session, we will not be.
Okay.
I think that's true, because we don't have a separate work session scheduled. We have a commission meeting.
Okay, so the point,
Very fishy.
my point is, I don't have a problem with us discussing it further tonight, and whether we hear the public comment tonight or at a work session where we do allow public comment, either way. But again, I don't want this to be the last opportunity.
I have no, I don't think there's any intent by us or the staff that this is the last word. This is not the last word. Where I'm coming from is that, again, I think I have a pretty good idea of what the concerns are in the community. I have received numerous phone calls, met with neighbors, met with people. What I want to do, for me, is I want to get a clear understanding of staff about the component parts of this, and we have not been able to do that because we've had so many wonderful people come forward and talk to us about their concerns. I want to try to get my facts in my little categories so that I can get everything straight. I've read all the material. I brought the packet from last time with everything in there. And again, it's not only the emails, it's, the personal calls, the grocery store conversations, the post office conversations. So, I know I haven't heard everything, but I've heard the majority of it, and I appreciate the fact, and I appreciate everybody that I've talked to, and I've said, let us get a better understanding of where we are so that we can figure out how your concerns fit into all of this, because I get it. I get that there's a concern. I wish that we could do a do-over, and maybe that's what we're going to do, is we're going to do a do-over. So, Carla, if you want to come up and give us a very brief summary of whatever it is. If I don't know, again, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. So the public has got to give us an opportunity to get more informed.
Carla Laws, Oregon City. I have been able to talk on the CIC. I haven't really been able to stay as a volunteer in my position. And I don't, honestly, and out of no disrespect, I think at the grocery store or side conversations is different than public record.
They're not side conversations, Ms. Laws. Public has a right to come up and talk to me about anything that they want to, whether I'm on this dais or not.
I understand that. It's just, when public record, then it's public record for everyone to see on video if they want to. And so my concern is I was actually approached several times at work today via text. Did you know this was in the packet? I said, no, I had no clue, because I'm the neighborhood chair as well. So, the MOU fees do affect just even the neighborhood association on top of several nonprofits I volunteer for. And out of no disrespect, I understand everyone volunteers. I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal that I volunteer and winning more than anyone else. I understand and I appreciate you all. And you do way more hours than I do. I understand that. Thank you very much. But I'm just saying is, from what I've talked to, is several of my other volunteers, they want to be part of this public record. And that's what's important. And I really appreciate your time and listening and inviting me back up. Thank you very much.
There will be notification for anybody and everybody that's interested in this particular topic or any other topic, and they are more than welcome to come and, at a time and place where we can talk about people's issues, concerns. This doesn't affect just nonprofits, and nonprofits are, I'm president of the board of several of them, so I'm very aware of 501c3s and their statuses. Again, in order to make an informed decision, for me, I need to understand exactly what it is that is being proposed, what the impacts may be, both the good impacts, bad impacts, or everything else. And I have not been able to do that to date, for me personally. I've read the material, but I've not been able to have a discussion with these folks. And that's what still needs to have happen, so that we can get clarity about what needs to be done or should be done, or we need to go back. What has happened right now is that we've been, I would say, inundated with comments, which is perfect, and there's nothing wrong with it. But that's one side of the story. There's several different sides of whatever the issue is, and that's what I'm trying to get clear in my head, where everything kind of lays out. I'd like to create, if I could do it, I'd create a Gantt chart so I can figure out how all the pieces come together. And that's part of what we want to try to do, and the public is definitely going to continue to be involved in this process. So let's move on to the consent, to the presentations. Historic Review Board, please.
You got comment over here
I understand
and over
that.
here.
I would just say that reading my emails today, there were a number of submittals, I think individually, to our commission. They are not reflected in this item number 11, which I think they should be for everybody's reading, even the general public. I'm also of the opinion that I would not make this a work session item under any circumstances because of the limitations on what we can and can't do. We could make it a decision to possibly postpone any implementation under a commission action, which we could not make as a work session. So I'll leave it at that.
We can even say at this point that we wanted to come back to a full work session. So let's wait till we get there so we can do that. Come on up. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Oh, is it not on, or am I just not close
You
enough?
just need to get closer. So
All right.
the Historic Review Board, one of, I hate to say this, but one of my favorite boards of the city. Nothing against the Planning Commission. But
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Sabrina Ferry. I'm current chair of the Historic Review Board. I am presenting to you our accomplishments for the 2022 year.
And You're going to need to speak up.
Oh,
even though you're in-
apologies.
There you go.
Okay, all right. So in 2022, the Historic Review Board reviewed 12 applications versus 20 in 2021. We awarded 5 local preservation grants for window and siding repair. We awarded the 2022 Ruth McBride Powers Preservation Award to Haley and Mike McGinnis for their restoration of 610 JQ Adams Street in the McLaughlin Conservation District. We mailed out quarterly historic property owner welcome packets to new owners. And we held work sessions to create draft design guidelines for middle housing, presented to Kanema and McLaughlin Neighborhood Associations, and will present to City Commission at a future work session in 2023. We also reviewed 5 applications for new construction or modifications to approved new construction projects. We reviewed 3 applications for alterations to historic properties. We reviewed 3 applications for demolition of garages. We reviewed 2 applications for delisting or reduction in size of the landmark, and provided design advice for 1 project. Looking forward to 2023, we will be sending the middle housing guidelines for new construction to the City Commission, to you all, to review and have approval of later this spring. We also hope to get back to the compatible change project sometime in 2023. And we're currently looking at nominees for the May Preservation Month Ruth McBride Powers Preservation Award.
Are there any questions? So I'm going to ask several. Number one, this is mostly for staff. So when are the packets going to be going out for this year to the property owners? I know that in my neighborhood, we've had a substantial number of new people, and I can tell you some of them do not have a clue. And that is concerning to me.
Sure. We utilize the quarterly update from the tax assessor, and anytime a property that is designated changes hand, our GIS department sends us the list, and we put together a welcome wagon packet that we mail out. And so we probably, I would say, 7 to 12 every time we have a quarterly update is not an unusual number.
So maybe sometime around tax time, or?
It is actually every 3 months, and then I'm thinking the last time I received quarterly update was right before the end of the year, so probably within this next month, I'll receive an email from GIS.
So given that you listed in items 1 through 5 the applications that were reviewed, talk about the opportunities that were gained through the process and things that probably may have been constraints in terms of going through, some of the applicants going through historic review. I think, for me personally and the commission, maybe that would be of interest, other than, yeah, we just processed this many, because they each were varied. I know we had a very challenging one that has gone on for 3+ years, but other than that, what would you say in your summation, being on the board, what were some takeaways that you had?
Let me see.
Christina can jump in.
I think that, takeaways, I don't know. Do you have any?
I've only been staffing the Historic Review Board for about half of 2022, so my recollections are of the second half of the year. And, there's always this balance of, be it new construction or additions, and how to find that place where you are compatible, but you're also differentiating yourself from the historic resource. It's the Secretary of Interior standard that we kind of, is our North Star. And so, how do you work to try to find that right balance? I know we are working on our solar panel. We have a policy for solar panels, and as technology gets better and more people want to do it, and we're looking at, how do you actually get enough solar panels up there to make the numbers work for you to want to invest. we'll be reaching out to other communities to see where their policies are, what we allow at a staff level versus what goes for the Historic Review Board. I know that's something the board requested at the meeting last night, and we'll be working on that work session. But it's one thing I'd always recommend for anybody listening. The board is always supportive of coming in for design advice. So we mentioned we had one last year. It's free. You only have to turn it in like a week and a half before the meeting. We can get it up on the agenda if you have elevation drawings and a site plan, and get some good feedback from the board before you really dive in and start spending money on your design. So we always recommend, if you, that's one of the best ways to start your project, especially new construction, is to come on in for design advice.
Thank you for saying that. I think it's really important, and I always recommend to people that they do that. They don't always do it, and sometimes I think they come back and wish they had, but I think we can do what we can. It's available, and I will continue to push that because I think it's the best way to go. Anything else?
No.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to getting some of us will look forward to getting our notices in the mail. And now, without further ado, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Bob LaSalle. Very glad to see that you don't have the walker or your cane, that you are
I'm doing better.
doing way better every time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabrina. Don't forget for the record, even though I said your name.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Bob LaSalle, and I'm the Chair of the Citizens Involvement Committee. Thank you for allowing time for this presentation of our activities in 2022. As usual, we had quarterly presentations from John Lewis from Public Works, Victoria Meinuck for the Chamber of Commerce, and Liz Hannum for the Downtown Oregon City. And their presentations are always informative and appreciated by everybody on the CIC. Jerry Herman gave us information on mitigation funding available, and I think the city's now moving forward with taking advantage of that funding. He also gave us a brief history of the Abernathy Green, Kelly Field, or the Rossman landfill site, whatever you choose to call it, all of the above. We were given a presentation on the addition of a break and lunchroom for the building construction at the metro station. We were given an enlightening presentation from Aaron Parker, a city engineering technician, about the floodplain and what the city does for mitigation in that floodplain. And that was a requirement to aid citizens in getting better rates on their insurance, the people that are in that floodplain. So that's a good thing that the city does for them. The Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde gave us a very interesting presentation on the Willamette Falls site, and everyone hopes that the various parties can begin working together again to develop this truly amazing site. We're given a lot of information over a period of time on the housing choices codes and what it means for this city. We were kept informed of the OC 2040 comprehensive plan update, which took a while, but it's moving right along. The development and changes at corner 14 were presented and discussed, and that corner there seems to be food cart central for Oregon City. If you want anything to eat, why, I'm sure it's there. We were presented information on an emergency annexation on Rose Road, and you approved that annexation, which was due to a failed septic system. We were given a tour of the new public Works building on First Street by Vance Walker, and I think we got our money's worth on that building. It's a great facility and a great asset for the city. We were also given a tour of the new police department facility by Chief Band, and that was just an outstanding tour and gave us insight into what's in that building, many things which a regular citizen would never even think about. It's really quite a facility. And again, we got our money's worth on that one, with the exception of the City Commission Chambers acoustics. I had to bring that up. Chief Band also gave us a presentation on the emergency responsibilities of our police and their ongoing training. This was a result of a question about the school shootings throughout the nation, and everybody's concerned about that. And it sounds like the Oregon City Police Department is right on top of that with a lot of good training. And he told us that the city police officers are on standing orders to go to the sound of gunfire. And that's a very, very encouraging aspect of our police department is just an outstanding gem in our community. I'd just like to applaud Jim Band for a great job that he's been doing for us. As usual, we took part in the National Night Out, and as usual, that was a hot event. Literally hot event. Kendall Reed gave us a presentation on the activities of the Parks and Recreation Department. Kathy Wiseman gave us a presentation of the activities at the Pioneer Community Center. And you should probably give her more money. She deserves it. We were given a presentation on the updated street tree code. We were given a presentation from the Village at the Falls, and if you don't know what that is, it's a senior aid organization which helps seniors that can't help themselves, and they're all volunteers. It's a great organization. It's called the Village at the Falls. Cheryl Rice gave us a presentation on the actions of the Friends of the Ermatinger House, and I'm sure that I'll get backup from Commissioner Rocky Smith that that's another organization that needs more money. We were given an extensive presentation on the proposed development of the Rossman landfill, again, Abernathy Green, Kelly Field, whatever you want to call it. The first meeting took so much time that I had to schedule a whole separate meeting, second meeting, and devote it entirely, almost completely entirely, to the information that they gave us on that development. And even after that second meeting, not all the questions were answered. I just had to say, hey, we're running out of time here. We just got to close it up. But all the members seem to have a generally good feeling about what's going on there. So that's a positive thing. I would like to give special recognition to our city liaison, Christina Robertson Gardner. She just does an outstanding job for us. She's always right there with answer any questions that she may answer. She does a great job when I forward the agenda to her. If there's any additions that need to be put on there or any suggestions from her, she always gets in touch with me. And she's just a great gal to have helping us on the CIC. We really appreciate her help. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Well, I'll give you the same question I gave Sabrina, as what do you think over the past year were the opportunities, constraints, and where do you see the CIC going? I'm assuming you'll be chair, but I don't want to to stack the deck. So,
Where do you think the CIC is going?
yes, in terms of, what they'd like to focus on, that sort of thing.
Well, I think the main thing, of course, is to concentrate on land use issues. That's our main mandated goal. But also, I encourage the CIC members to bring forward concerns that they have within their neighborhoods that the rest of us might not know that we could help them with, and forward those organized concerns on to the city commission. So. Anything else?
Anybody have a question?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your good work.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have a question. One more, Bob. So you're listed on the list as a liaison for several of trying to get some of these other organizations up and running. And the reason I bring it up is that I happened to come across, I'm going through some boxes that belong to our former community development director. And I know that when I started working for the city, we had 11 neighborhood associations. Ely was still called Ely. Back then it was not Elyville, it was just Ely. We had Buena Vista, we had South End, McLaughlin, Rivercrest. There was I think Caulfield might have actually been in existence by then as well. So we've had a little bit of a downturn in terms of, people's interest and involvement, and I know you're working really hard to try to get people to, it's not only about coming in and griping about something, it's about, doing something constructive as well. And so how, is it still a little tenuous?
Well, we're being somewhat successful in getting other neighborhood associations activated. In fact, tonight, the Two Rivers Neighborhood Association, actually they've been called Two Rivers and a Creek Neighborhood Association. But
I've not heard that, but
they're having a meeting, actually a meeting tonight. And so hopefully they're going to get organized again. When I assumed the chairmanship of the Citizens Involvement Committee, we had, I think it was 6 of the 12 neighborhoods active. And now I think we've got 9 of them active. And maybe the 10th after tonight, who knows? So we're showing some progress there.
Yeah, the last time I went to Two Rivers, there was two Rivers people were there, and so there were like three of us.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them are still very active, like Park Place that I belong to.
Yeah.
We had a meeting Monday night, and there was about, I think, 30, 35 people there. We typically get a good turnout. McLaughlin is another one that always gets a good turnout. Most of them, I think if they feel they get 10 or 12 people there, they're doing good.
That is good.
Which, it's
That's how we feel at our meetings too, so.
Yeah. So yeah, just for staff's notice, I did not get a notice about the Park Place meeting on Monday, and I asked to be put on so that I would get notices about every neighbor. Obviously, I couldn't go to Two Rivers tonight because I'm here, but, so I'm still not getting the
I'll have to talk to
notices.
Steve Van Haverbeek about that. He's our chair, so I
Yeah.
have to be sure you get on our list.
I'll give an update to that. We're adding the mayor's address to all the neighborhood association postcards, so she can get.
I should start getting the postcards.
And that will happen as soon as everything gets back up, and it's on our GIS's list. So the next time we have a refresh, it's already on their work plan.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
She's our heroine.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Very valuable work.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Anything
you,
else?
Bob. Okay, thank you for coming
bet.
out, and I'm glad you're doing so much better. I'll be looking forward to you and my running that 5K. All right, we have a number of items on our consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody would like to have further discussion about? I had a question about 7A.
Chairman Griff,
Yeah.
can we adopt the agenda first? Because I have a suggestion to make.
Well, yes, we're getting there. I just want, so if we adopt
No.
the agenda, I want to make sure that we get these things off, so. Go ahead and make a motion.
No.
We generally just go straight to the consent agenda, and we either approve that or we don't, and then we move on. So,
I would like to do item 9A, which would be Mr. Henderson's request, next, then go to the consent agenda, then go to the general business, because he's making a good faith effort to try to make a presentation at the neighborhood association.
well,
I move to approve the
then
consent
coming back.
agenda.
Second.
Okay, well, like I said, I had a question about
So,
something on
hang on.
7A.
I believe
and I had a
Mr.
question about
Mitchell-
7C.
Mr. Mitchell had made a motion, and that was still pending before Commissioner Smith made a motion.
Yeah,
So
well, I have a
the-
question
I withdraw
about,
my motion.
I have a quick question about 7A, and I have a quick question about 7C, which will, I don't want them pulled off and put under general business because it's a very simple, it's either a yes or no.
I second Commissioner Mitchell's motion.
And the motion was, you want to move,
Motion to do item 9A now, then discuss the consent agenda, and then
okay,
general business.
let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, Mr. Conkle, would you give us a general background, please?
Okay, and I'll ask Mr. Henderson to come on up as well. So as was stated under public comment, the commission did approve the city submitting the RAISE grant. So that was the initial grant.
And let's tell us what the RISE stands for, just for the public.
Do you remember what it stands for?
Very
I'll have to look
complicated.
it
I'll
up.
pull it up.
Essentially, it's for the infrastructure, helping to pay for the infrastructure on Washington Street, Abernethy Street, Redland, and 213. That grant is for just over $16.5 million is what that request is. As Mr. Henderson indicated, ODOT has agreed to administer it. We are going to have to negotiate with ODOT as to the terms of that. So just so you're aware, the grant can be pulled, I believe, till the end of May. So we are going to have to negotiate how it's going to be administered with ODOT. So the proposal now is to get at least Oregon City, ODOT, Mr. Henderson, Summit Development, and we're hoping the county in the room to discuss how this is going to be administered and brought forward. The second request, why we're here tonight, is that there is the opportunity to request the $5 million, which has the $1 million match, so an additional $4 million. So that would bring the total to just over $20.5 million for infrastructure in that same area. So 213 Redland, Washington, and Abernethy. So these are two separate requests. One is the grant proposal. One is essentially what we would all know as earmarks out of the federal legislature. Both need to be submitted by a local agency, nonprofit, tribal interest. So we are here tonight requesting approval to be the sponsor to submit the request for the additional $4 million for similar infrastructure improvements as were identified in the RAISE grant that we've submitted as well.
And to answer your question, Mayor, RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity.
It's a mouthful.
It's Department of Transportation. Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity.
Did you get that, Jacob, so that it shows up in the notes? Mr. Smith?
These grants are tied to specifically the Summit Development Project, or if that does not occur, those grants are applied to any project on that property?
No, these grants
That's all
are,
I need to know.
Go ahead.
So my issue with that is only the Urban Renewal Commission really has taken a stand or made comments about priority projects. And even in that, we didn't prioritize a specific development. We prioritized sites. The City Commission hasn't done any of that. But the City Commission giving a blessing to massive grants that are tied to one specific development that we don't know is going to go through or not, implies to the greater community, we've thrown our hat into that development, that we're supporting that one development. We haven't done that, nor should we do that, because until the developer owns the property, which we've seen this game before, where we have a project that falls apart because the developer never owned the property in the first place, and yet somehow the city was blamed for the project falling apart. You don't think that's going to happen if we support grants that go forward that are tied to one project that happens to not go through? Do I think that these grants are amazing and possible thing to go after for a development? Absolutely, and we should not, we should be doing that, but it should be tied to a project on that site, not a specific development. Because we do that, we're already telling people this is the project, essentially creating a pack without even doing it. It's weird, and I won't support it.
Are there any other comments? Sorry, turned mine off. Mr. Morrow?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Henderson wanted to say about what if in the scenario that the development doesn't go forward for whatever reason.
Oh, he was answering a question. I got my answer, so I didn't need the rest of it.
Go ahead, please.
yeah, just to clarify, so the projects we're talking about, for instance, Redland Road and 213, which is what has been considered the Jug Handle Phase 2 project. That is a project which will facilitate flow on 213 when the courthouse relocates. It includes additional queuing along Redland. So any development which occurs in Park Place, where right now there's a queuing issue for that short portion of Redland. If the county buildings are ever developed along Abernethy, if the Stimson property is ever developed, these projects along Washington, Abernethy, Redland, and 213 benefit a lot more than just our project.
So that grant would apply if your development didn't happen?
So right now, we are stepping up for the 20% contribution. If our project didn't happen and either the city, county, or ODOT wanted to step up for that 20% contribution, then ODOT, the city, and the county could proceed with the project.
But they could do that with us right now without you.
There's a substantial amount of lobbying that needs to be done in DC to get an extremely competitive raised grant. There's also a 65-page application that needs to be put together. There's the BCA benefit cost analysis that was done by Kittleson, the transportation engineer. So you're absolutely correct. If the county and the city and ODOT were all to coordinate in the same direction. I mean, for instance, the Jug Handle Phase 2 project, the Jug Handle was originally a single project and the funding wasn't there. It has been sitting on the shelf for over a decade. So,
right, but a private developer didn't drive the Jug Handle project.
correct.
Right. So
I'm hoping we could be an impetus to get those projects done, Commissioner.
Mr. Mitchell, did you want anything? Did you want to ask further question? Mr.
Not right now.
Sorry, Mr. O'Donnell.
If I understand correctly, this is a first step. If for some reason your project does not materialize, you just stated others could step in and pick up that 20% and still benefit from this. So it gets us in the queue to receive this, whether you're the initiating, whether you're the beneficiary of the award or others are in the future. Is that correct?
The city is the applicant.
Well, I understand what the
Yeah.
city's applicant, because that's
Yes.
the criteria as to who can apply.
Right. So it would be up to the city whether or not, if we were to disappear, there's the option of either pulling the grant application, or the city could proceed if they decided to do the 20% match.
Okay, that's a very succinct explanation. The previous, what do they call it, the RAISE grant? The reason we have so many different governmental institutions involved is because it crosses the border, does it not, between Oregon City and county and state. And that 16 million or whatever it is could get allocated among those different jurisdictions.
Right, so it's, sometimes we'll bring you a jurisdictional transfer where we take
Sure.
over, so Abernethy is a county road still, Washington Street is a city road, and then obviously you have 213 in the intersection with Redland is a state facility. So that's where the jurisdictional coordination would hopefully come from.
See, my feeling is without the private component in initiating this and putting up to 20%, probably nothing will happen. And the thing, unless these governmental jurisdictions decide on their own to do it, which I've heard nothing about that.
Correct.
Well, I'm comfortable with it.
Adam?
Thank you. I agree. We've talked extensively about how our staff does not have the bandwidth, and in the past, we've given our blessing for them to pursue similar grants or ways to fund this project that would ultimately lessen a future ask of urban renewal, which is something that I'm supportive of because given the regional importance of this site, I don't think it should be put on solely on the foot of the Oregon City taxpayers. So I am supportive of this and I appreciate this because again, whether we decide we want to move forward, even if the development does not, this provides a catalyst for that project to happen, so.
I'd like to make a motion to,
Let's wait and see if anybody else has discussion before we have a motion. Anything else? Okay, so
Yeah, second, I have a follow-up statement. Just,
a statement or a question?
no, a statement that, in the past, it's been clear that we did not OC staff to be in the primary administrative position initially. And that'll be the case. But however, upon the grant being, if it is successfully pursued, we will have an increasing burden on our staff. There's no question about it. So everybody needs to understand that. But there's a benefit to that. So that's my only statement.
So I just wanted to ask a question. So so ODOT's involved in this as well. So I wanted it to be perfectly clear that this is not going to do anything to try to placate us with regard to tolling. So I am, I want to make that perfectly clear so that there's not, one hand giving the other hand and saying, well, you let us do this, so now why don't you just back off on tolling? We are not backing off on the tolling. So that's where I'm coming from because it's been suggested by some staff, not our staff, but other staff that, well, how about if we give you X, Y, or Z to help with this? And I said, that is not going to help, and no, you can't buy us. We're not for sale. So, now please.
I'll make a motion to approve the city being the submitting agency or whatever the proper term is for the $4 million federal earmark as presented.
Second.
The RISE grant?
No, this is not the RAISE grant. This is a separate federal earmark through Senator Merkley's office.
Yeah, congressionally directed spending through Merkley.
Oh, gosh. I can't write that fast.
Second.
Congressionally
Directed spending.
directed spending. Okay.
Earmark in the good old days.
Yeah. Well, we have to make a fancy title for it. We can't just say earmarks. Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam.Mayoral,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, so what about part 2? I thought there were 2
I didn't hear
grants.
a part two.
The raise grant we had already brought before the commission.
Okay, so
That
I
was
thought we'd done
submitted
that.
yesterday.
Okay.
This was a second opportunity for
Okay.
additional federal funding.
All right. Again,
So this is part 2.
yeah, okay, so again, ODOT, we're not being, we're doing this over here, that has nothing to do with that over there. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
getting this on tonight.
Let's move to item 7, and if I can just get a quick answer on 7A, and is that Public Works? And then I also set the same question as about 7C, so not the same, but a similar question. And then it should take care of it. It's not a big, long discussion. So under the resolution vacating the unused portion, so I just want to be clear when I read the report, so that water line that was the issue got moved someplace else, so now the easement is not needed because it's not under a building, it's not under anything that is going to cause a problem in the future.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Under number C, it only talked about the flower baskets on 7th. Are we talking about flower baskets that will also go on Main Street? Is that
Flower baskets on your police cars? We're talking about D.
Sorry,
Are you
7D,
talking about D?
7D is the.
7D is the opiate.
No, 7E is the opiate.
Okay, well,
We
on
got
mine,
two different-
7...
we got two different sets of numbers.
7D on mine is the opiate, so I'm talking about the personal services agreement for the annual hanging of the flower baskets.
Sorry, we've got two different sets of numbers.
Why is that? I don't know. He sent out several revised agendas, and I may not have printed the last one, so I don't want to, I'm already using double-sided paper that I've already used.
The contract does include hanging baskets on Main Street.
Okay, perfect, that's it. Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Mitchell. Let's do the roll.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam.Mayoral,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion
And I
passes.
will say that every year we get amazing compliments about the flower baskets. People notice them. I think it's been a wonderful project, and I know that's a little bit of dollars, but it just kind of doll up the neighborhoods, and having them on 7th and then on Main Street also makes it it just freshens everything up. All right, so item number 8, first reading of ordinance number 23-1001, code amendments to previously adopted middle housing code package number 2. I'm not going to read all the file numbers. So we will have the staff report, and then we will open the public hearing. So this is legislative, correct, Mr. Kabizman?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we don't have to go through the whole ex parte and all of that.
No.
Anytime you're
Oh,
ready.
sorry, I was waiting for something longer, I apologize.
You want me to keep, I don't want to keep talking. I
That's
don't
fine.
need the abuse from the end of the dais over here.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I am back. This was originally presented to you at the February 1st City Commission meeting and was supposed to be at the February 15th, but we're back here March 1st on the proposed first reading. I generally have the same slides as last time, so I'll just go through them to remind you of what the part of this package is. Your options tonight are to either approve the first reading of the ordinance and come back at the March 15th meeting for the second reading, or provide staff additional direction, and we will return at the March 15th meeting. So House Bill 2001, code amendments were adopted by the City Commission in June of 2022. There was a need to continue the file to address some additional outstanding policy questions, which you will actually be meeting with the Planning Commission next week at your work session, but then also to hold space to look at any technical revisions. What you have in front of you this evening are the technical revisions that were reviewed and proposed for approval and recommended for approval by the Planning Commission in early January. The topics include allowing code language to ensure that middle housing on our mixed-use corridor zones don't have to be placed right at 5 feet. So that code section has been revised to allow properties, middle housing properties, to be placed a little bit farther back on Malala Avenue. Townhomes and middle housing land division. This formally segregates out the middle housing land division for townhomes is only 4 units or less. And if you want to do a larger development of townhomes, you need to go through our subdivision process. Larger developments really need to be processed through our subdivision code, which looks at a lot more complexity of the utilities rather than what we really see as middle housing land division, which is an infill project. Our Public Works Department worked with planning staff to look at driveways and how to ensure that middle housing can have additional driveways, but that they are safe. So an additional driveway code has been added that provides clear direction. In general, you are allowed 1 driveway for every 2 units, but you can have 2 driveways for a triplex and 2 driveways for a fourplex. So duplex gets 1 driveway, triplex gets 2 driveways, fourplex gets 2 driveways. Additionally, requiring any driveways on arterial to ensure that there's no backing up movement. So if you have middle housing, for example, on Malala Avenue, you have to turn around on your property and make sure you don't back into Malala Avenue. So some of that additional direction. Some of it was safety considerations that were done during the permit process for a right-of-way review, but our Public Works Assistant City Engineer really felt that the codification of these was really important. Finally, there was a goal to ensure that modifications to middle housing design standards are run through our Type 2 variance process. So we've identified that. And what is missing from this slide is the direction from Commissioner Mitchell about changes to our cluster housing code, and that has been added into the packet you see today, and I just didn't get a chance to put a slide on that.
Was that the one regarding more space for the open space?
Yes.
That was your, yeah. And the garages, yeah.
Yep, so that's in your packet. And there's a red line version and then a clear copy. So that is what is in the technical amendments this evening. With those technical amendments, for the most part, this part of the legislative file will be closed. On Tuesday, the City Commission and Planning Commission will talk about policy questions for future work plans. Most likely, the full legislative file will be closed by the Planning Commission at their March 13th meeting to review and reflect what was discussed at the work session. And then really any new work plan or code changes that come out of these discussions between the Planning Commission and City Commission would be a new legislative file. So we're looking at closing this legislative file with these technical amendments, and then the Planning Commission formally closing it in early March. So I'm available for any questions the City Commission may have.
Are there any additional questions about the direction that we gave? I believe that everything that we had revised has been put in this particular packet. And anything else? I would say facetiously we should put a standard in an asterisk saying, please, no more buildings that are black, white, and gray. That's the New York Times said that is the color of the year, and I swear to God, I just...
It's okay, there'll be a new fad color in a couple of years.
I know, next year it'll be chartreuse and pink and something else. Everybody's mimicking it, so the new construction that we've had lately, guess what color it is? And gray on gray in Oregon doesn't do anything, so...
It's like the pink houses of the 80s. People got tired of it and picked a new color.
All right, so let's open the public hearing on this file, and I see that there's a multitude of people here to testify and have a discussion about this very important code amendment. Being that I don't see anyone in the audience, I will close the public hearing, and allow for deliberation by the commission. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 23-1001, code amendments to previously adopted middle housing code, package number 2.
I'll second it. Roll call.
Ordinance number 23-1001, an ordinance adopting amendments to the Oregon City Municipal Code, Title 16, Land Divisions, and Title 17, Zoning of the Oregon City Municipal Code.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye. And I would say that as we move into this, I would really like to get some regular updates from staff about how it's going, which means I'm anticipating that you will be going out and looking at these things on a fairly regular basis to report back, because I know I will. I just want to make sure that it's going to be working the Oregon City way, and I appreciate all the staff work, because as you know, my initial reservation about this was when I was on Planning Commission, is that the state wanted us to do a one-size-fits-all, and I think staff has done an excellent job in crafting this so that it meets what Oregon City needs and maintains our livability, and that is really very, very important to this commission and is part of one of our goals. So I think it bodes well for future things that we're going to need to be doing, because we want to follow the laws and we want to follow the regulations, but we have to make it work for Oregon City, and that's really important. So thank you for all your work on this. I know we have a second reading coming up, so we'll get through that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, communications.
So the only communication that I have tonight is the one that I gave to the Urban Renewal Commission concerning the proposed budget calendar. So when we originally presented, the changes that we've made are really the first on the April 12th, and so we've moved everything back 1 week. Originally, the first budget committee meeting was going to be April 20th. We're going to move that to April 27th, but then we still have allowed for 4 budget committee hearings separated by 1 week in between each. If the commission's has any questions, myself or Mr. Zook could answer them, or...
Does that at all conflict with the annual spring conference for LOC?
I'd have to look.
I thought it was like April 24th. Maybe it's only those 3 days. Maybe it's Monday, Tuesday, and then it's done on Wednesday. And then
So
you're
it's
talking
April.
about the 27th, which is Thursday.
It says April 25th and 26th in
Okay.
Seaside.
So we're in the clear. And speaking of that, does any commissioners would like to go to the spring conference? We need to get, the registration is open now. And staff would need to get us situated. So nobody wants to go? I know you're already going to be in Seaside for another reason. Yeah. Okay, well, it looks like it's just me. All right. Did you want to say anything about the retreat?
Mr. Wiley, want to give a little bit of an update?
Sure. So we're just getting ready to post that agenda here coming pretty soon. So it's going to be 2 days. Our facilitator's name is Stephen Bacon. I don't know if some of you have met with him already. So on Friday, March 3rd, the meeting will start around 4 o'clock. Will last until about 8:15, 8:30. The next day is going to be for Saturday. Breakfast is at 8 o'clock. The actual retreat component starts at 8:30. We should be wrapping up around 4:30 that evening. So that's the general schedule. If you have any specific questions, just let me know.
You'll send those times out to us?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll be part of the agenda when we post
I
it.
got to figure out if I can get a workout in on Saturday morning.
There are 15-minute breaks and a lunch break on Saturday.
You could walk to the college.
I could walk to the college from my house as my workout?
Yeah.
Okay, well said, Mr. Smith. Commissioners.
I won't be joining you.
You won't?
No,
You
no.
won't?
No.
There you go. We'll do a little,
Take my
we'll start at Commissioner Smith's house and we will walk. We'll have our pilot car behind us in case somebody collapses so that we can be picked up along the way. So anybody that wants to do that, I'll check with you later and we will do that exercise. So I'm going to save you for last. I'm going to go down the end of the.
Nothing.
Okay. Mr. Smith, any commissioners' information?
I'm trying to think. I will say I did attend the lantern tour at the Irma Tinger House. I think that was Friday night. Mm-hmm. Sold out, all the tours. It was a cool, very cool event. Holly Swager did a great job, so that was a cool event.
Great, thank you for representing us. Mr. Mitchell?
C4 Metro, at our last, I think it was just at our last meeting, which has been a while, Ms. Webb shared with us.
Are we doing committee reports?
That's what I thought we were doing.
It's communications, and if that's part of your communication. It's not technically a committee report, but I think that in light of the fact that testimony started yesterday, I think it's important for you to talk about that, and you've got some legislative stuff.
This isn't about that. I guess maybe it's, well, very, very briefly, the items, we submitted items to the regional transportation list. There was the 2024 to 2030 constrained list, 2031 to 2045. All of the cities have submitted their list, and interestingly enough, the requests for both 2024 to 2030 and 2031 to 2045, requests from all the cities totaled up less than what is the projected available funds. Doesn't mean it's going to turn out that way, but at least we're not in a situation where we ask for 3 times the amount of money that would ever be available. So that's all I had.
Mr. Morrow?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to give a couple of quick updates of some things happening in Salem that we should be aware of. The first one is HB 2001, and this is not the HB 2001 that we were just discussing, but this is another HB 2001 that is heading down the pike.
You think they gave that same number to jinx it?
It connotes their priorities, so it's up there for their priorities. So this is the legislative housing package, and basically a lot of things are still in the works, but the goal for them in Salem is to pass it by mid-March. Or by the end of the month. And so they've got an aggressive timeline on this. And so just some highlights. Each local government will create their own housing production strategy with the support of DLCD. Now, if that comes in the form of staff or funding, who knows, but we will see. And if these production goals are not met, then DLCD will have quote unquote increased tools to keep local governments accountable. So again, there are a lot of things that are still to be determined. They're going to be looking at permitting processes and ways that they can cut the red tape. So there are definitely some things that are going to affect how we operate as local governments moving forward, especially as it relates to housing. And then just another, on a lighter note and more positive note, there is now a bill in the legislature that would prohibit tolling on I-5 and I-205, except for the I-5 bridge replacement. Senator Meek is a chief sponsor, the office that I work in. He is chief sponsoring this. And at first, I didn't know if this was more of a showy bill, such as a look at what I did in the next election, but the bill's not going to go anywhere. But it does have at least 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans from both the Senate and the House who have signed on to the bill. So it's got a nice show of bipartisanship. It requires ODOT to study alternative funding mechanisms, which we all know we do need, but we don't believe that tolling is the answer for that. And so I'll keep you updated on that, and I'm really excited.
Is there a number for that yet?
That's Senate Bill 933.
So the HB 2001, is that Representative Decker's bill?
There is no Decker.
Okay.
That's the housing.
Yes.
One of the housing packages.
Right. Well, there was one I read about in the Oregonian while I was coming back from overseas, and I thought that was her name, but...
There's Dexter?
Dexter, okay, it's Dexter, sorry.
Okay.
So that's her bill?
Well, it's a little more broad than that. There's partnership with the governor's office, because she's laid out some plans for what she wants to do, and the housing committee, so it isn't just one person, there's a lot of stakeholders in on this.
I understand she's the chief sponsor.
Yeah, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Did I understand, you said that cities would provide their housing target numbers? Because from what I had heard, DLDC was going to tell cities what their housing targets numbers were to be.
I don't know who would create the target. What I said was that we would have to create a housing production strategy with the numbers that are provided by that.
Yeah, which is about saying the same thing.
And so they're talking about having a website that has all the different cities listed and all the cities' progress listed as to where they stand on those housing production goals. So I don't know who comes up with those numbers.
I don't either.
But what I was saying was that this city has to create their own housing production strategy using those numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And that's what I have for tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate your bringing that forward. I've already formed unfortunately, a very negative opinion about this, because I don't think, from a standpoint of being a planner, that unless the state is going to give us money to build housing that is needed and it's affordable and under $300,000, I don't understand how that could possibly physically happen. We don't control the housing market. We don't have funding to build housing per se, and we can't tell the private sector, you will build this. So I think that the goal is lofty. I think that the goal is admirable, but once again, the burden falls on local governments to try to achieve these things without adequate funding, without, clear and objective standards, and then there's going to come up with some arbitrary number that we have to try to meet. And I have real concerns about, I guess it's the method of how to get there versus having a conversation with cities to say, hey, we're thinking about this, how do you think we can do this? And there's no cooperation and there's no partnership. And I think if we're going to try to achieve this particular thing, then we need to be in the game and we need to be at the table, because again, it becomes another unfunded mandate. And I don't mean to sound like I'm against it. I am not. It's just how we get there. And jurisdictions in Oregon don't like necessarily being told you will do X, Y, or Z or else. It's the same thing with tolling. If you don't pay your toll, you're going to get your driver's license taken away. Well, that's punitive. And people are going to do whatever they can do to try to resist that. But anyway, thank you for keeping us up to date. It's really, really greatly appreciated, because things are moving fast and furious there, and it's hard to keep up with everything. So I want to ask for concurrence on appointments for the Transportation Advisory Committee. They met and I reviewed the applications as well as participated in the interviews, and there are three people, one person who is renewing their membership, and then 2 new applicants, and I would like your concurrence on approving those.
I concur.
All right, thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, so the appointments are hereby done. All right, so last but not least,
Maybe we take a short break before?
I'm just going to finish very quickly, and then we can take a break.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. I thought you were.
Yes, so just real quickly, over the last, as you know, I've been out of town, but before I left, I participated in a couple of things with the Mayor's Association. So there was a big article in the paper about the mayor's initiatives, and there's a package of one-page documents that basically talk about how we want to approach homelessness. Some of the other mayors in the vicinity have basically been participating. I attended Senator Meek's town hall in Happy Valley, and there were more Oregon City people and Clackamas County people at that one than there was no Happy Valley people at the Happy Valley one, so I hope they came to ours on the 16th. But some of the things that I brought up with regard to tolling, Mr. Meek was not aware of, so that, I felt that was very informative. There was general support amongst these citizens participating that they did not support tolling, and we requested Mr. Meek, if there was going to be that I asked for a year. It's like, okay, so you're planning on rolling this out the year after you do, kill us. And I said, why not just roll it out all at once? And he had not been aware that there was a two-step process with the tolling. So I felt that that was worthwhile, and I hope some of our citizens attended the one at the library on the 16th of February. And then Monday, I participated in a panel discussion through Clackamas Community College. It was the last program that they put on for Black History Month, and there was a panel of women in leadership positions, not only at Clackamas County, but at the college and myself, and we talked about, the main question was, what in your career path or personal life led you to where you are today and the position that we hold. So I was happy to represent the city in that particular panel. And then I think it's been advertised, but is it March the 16th? The Chamber is putting on the State of the Community. There will be Dr. Cook from Clackamas Community College. He's already kind of done his State of the College thing, but he'll do an abbreviated version. Dr. Spitzer from the school district will be talking about what's going on with the school district, and hopefully she'll talk about their strategic, are you involved in their strategic planning process? Interesting. Yeah, I keep getting the emails about it. And then I'm going to be talking about what we're doing and where we're going with and hopefully we'll have some, not hopefully, excuse me, we will have some great results from our retreat that I will be reporting on at that particular meeting. So that is all I have, and we will take what time is it? Let's take a break and come back at, in about 9.5 minutes.
Yes.
And we are live.
Okay. We are resuming the meeting. Commissioner Smith, yes.
All right, so at the beginning of the meeting, we had a citizen comment that we debated whether or not we were going to take because we had not really come to the conclusion of whether or not this is a work session or this topic is a work session or a regular commission meeting. Since the video says resuming the regular commission meeting, and since there is no work session agenda, I don't know how we can label this anything other than a regular meeting, which means regular rules probably apply and we can make a decision or not. This is not a work session.
Okay, well, I appreciate your opinion, but
It's not an opinion. There is no work session. If you look right here, well, now this is switched to work session, but you say, well, this is a regular meeting. There's no agenda for a work session.
well, there is an agenda at the end of our agenda, so to make this,
That's not an agenda, it's an item number 11.
Right.
That's not a separate agenda, that is item number 11 on a
okay, so
regular
should I adjourn the
meeting.
regular meeting and open it up as a work session?
No, we aren't having
I'm
a work
asking
session.
our attorney.
We can't have a work session, we didn't notice a work session.
There are a variety of different approaches, as with...
Pardon?
I said there are a variety of different approaches you could take. As with any, you've got it noticed as a work session item. Your rules of procedure have work sessions that says when things are typically held. There's nothing in your rules of procedures that prevents you from having a work session as part of or adjacent to a regular meeting. And so, as I understand it, the intent of this item is to allow the commission to have a discussion with no decision, to get additional information. And, certainly what I heard from the commission earlier is that they
Don't
all
turn
want
that
to hear
light on.
additional input from the public. And so I believe you can move forward with this item. It's really what do you want to do with it?
Mr. O'Donnell?
I would take issue with depicting this as a work session. And I stated this earlier in the meeting. The work session navigates under different rules. I don't see anyone here to give testimony from the impacted organizations, so I don't see them as having been given proper notice. But more importantly, a work session does not provide this commission with the opportunity to take an action by vote, even an interim action, which we may want to do. So for that reason, I would continue it on as a regular agenda item, as agenda item 11. And that would be, if I need to make a motion to that effect, I will.
And I will add that we can debate this in, I guess, the vote rules, but here's the thing. We have never done this before. I have never seen a work session listed under a regular agenda, ever. So that is something new. And to say that, because going into this tonight, I had no idea what that meant. I thought it meant we were talking about a future work session. I think you called today wondering what the hell that topic meant.
Yes, I did.
The public sure as hell doesn't know what that topic means if we got here tonight not knowing that. It wasn't noticed as a work session. There's no agenda item. There's no agenda to the public that there's a work session tonight. So I don't know how you could claim this is a work session. And if if the majority of this commission thinks this is a work session, I'm walking out that door.
Well, let's resolve it with a motion and a vote.
I'd like to hear from my two colleagues here at the end of the table.
Well, I don't think that this is an attempt to stymie public engagement because, like was already stated, or as was already stated, we can't make any decisions about this. So therefore, we would have to have a regular meeting after this, which would go through the procedures and have everyone have notice about it to come and speak. I think that, like I said earlier, that people were aware because we got email comments from various stakeholders. So I did not come into this meeting prepared to make a decision because, like we have with work sessions in the past, I came into it with the intent of gaining more information so I can make that decision in the future.
I would entirely concur with you on that point. I'm not prepared to make any decisions. I'm interested in getting information to lead to a future decision.
And I agree with what both of you just said. I don't think it's a work session because it was not noticed as a work session.
Well, I didn't say that. I think it is, but that's okay.
No, I said I agree with you.
Oh, okay.
And in
Okay.
addition, I don't think it's a work session because it wasn't noticed as a work session.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have a motion on the floor? I'm trying to.
No, we do not have a motion
I'll
on
make
the
a
floor.
motion that item number 11, agenda item number 11, be considered as a regular city commission agenda item, subject to the rules of city commission operation.
Second.
Let's have the roll call.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, so regardless of that, I'm still going to treat this as a discussion item by the commission. And as Commissioner Morrow and Commissioner Mitchell said, that we are not in a position at this point in time to be making any decisions. It is for information. Again, I agree with Commissioner Morrow. We've had a lot of input already from the public, and part of my concern
Point
is
of
that
order.
we've had commission
Point of
input
order.
that I haven't been able to process to get my facts straight.
Point of order. You as the mayor cannot decide whether or not this is a discussion item if it is a regular meeting. If at the end of the meeting, the majority of the commission wants to make a motion and make a decision, they can do that because it's a regular, you cannot dictate that. We just voted on whether or not.
I'm not dictating anything.
You said this will be approached as a discussion tonight.
I said I'm approaching it as a discussion for myself.
You said I just want to make it clear, we as a body are not doing that, or don't have to be guided by your direction on that point.
The only thing I would add to that discussion is there are items in effect right now that we may want to take a temporary action on. So let's let the presentation begin and gather information and see where it goes.
Mr. Reed, sir.
Thank you. City Commission, Mayor, tonight we're here to provide an update, not an update, but to have a discussion around memorandums of understanding, sports field fees, and neighborhood associations. Tonight I have with me Melissa Sebastian, who's the Aquatics and Rec Manager, and I also have with me Jonathan Waverly, our Parks and Cemetery Manager. Next slide. So the objective for tonight is to talk about some ongoing memorandums of understanding that we've been working on for the past couple of years. Memorandums of understanding are basically agreements that we utilize to coordinate responsibilities, to clarify roles and responsibilities. We work closely with our city attorney to outline what the memorandum of understanding is supposed to address. There's negotiation associated with the memorandum of understanding. We've used it in relationship to agreements associated with fields, reservations, maintenance agreements, to just have a clear understanding of what our roles are, what our responsibilities are, and what the requirements are. So the memorandums of understanding that we'll be discussing tonight are the Friends of the Armitinger House, Parks Foundation, Oregon City Youth Sports, and Oregon City Soccer. We will also be discussing sports field fees, the history of the fees, maintenance associated with managing the fees, and also providing a fee comparison. The other topic is neighborhood associations. We like to have some discussions around the policy, the fee waiver associated with shelter rentals, and the funding associated with that. Next slide.
Mr. Reed, before you get into the specifics of each MOU, could you give the commission a basic foundation of what was discussed with the city attorney, so that what are the basic things that we need to have, or you felt as a department we needed to have in these MOUs that was a starting basis to discuss this with the organizations, not only these, but there are others, as
Right.
I'm aware, just so that we can kind of get a foundation of where we're going.
Sure. For example, we have longstanding relationships with some groups throughout the city, and in certain instances, there are issues or maintenance requirements associated with projects that we do. And for us, we realized that there were some issues associated around the clarification of roles and responsibilities, who's doing what, communication, and in an effort to address some of those issues, we worked on developing a draft of a memorandum of understanding to outline what we felt was our responsibility, and we worked with the city attorney to review that information, and then the goal for us was to bring it back, as we always do with our partners, to review those terms, to get input from them as well, to have some level of negotiation associated with it, to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And then once there's some level of agreement, then that memorandum is signed off on. And we continue to renew those sometimes on an annual basis. We are looking for other MOUs for longer than a year, if so desired by both parties.
Is this something that other jurisdictions have, that use this type of agreement?
Quite often. Any other questions? All right. The Friends of the Ermitinger House is the first memorandum of understanding we'd like to discuss. We've been working with the Friends group for quite some time. We have an MOU. We've had an MOU in place since 2018, and much of the information that was in the 2018 MOU that currently still stands in the MOU that we presented to the City Commission tonight. Our goal with the Friends Group is to continue to work together to provide events, to pursue fundraising opportunities, to continue to maintain the house. And what we wanted to do is clarify some of the terms associated with the Memorandum of Understanding, specifically around programs that we work on together. We would prefer that we work on all of the programs together and split the proceeds from those programs 50-50. We also know that the Friends Group will have fundraisers and events that they want to be in charge of and would like to do. And so we also incorporated time in the Memorandum of Understanding that outlined, hey, we were going to provide time for you to do your own fundraisers as well. We believe that working together as a group with the Friends Group, we have a greater impact. We can leverage our resources more effectively. And we understand that there are issues associated with the management of funds. We've had some conversations around where does the money go? Is it just going to go back into the general fund? Our recommendation is that we keep that money, and all the money associated with programs that we do with the Friends Group and fundraisers goes into our dedicated donation account with the Ermitinger House. Commissioner Smith?
So on this bullet point here where you just said, it says, what you just said, where is it? All revenue generated with the Friends of Ermitinger be put in a donation account. So that means your half and the Friends of the Ermitinger half all go into a donation account, which I'm assuming, since there is no donation account, I'm assuming you're talking about the trust account?
We have a donation.
It's a donation account.
That's separate from the trust account.
It says trustee account.
So it's the same thing? Or is there two different?
There's, in the MOU, it says Ermitinger trustee account. The city account established?
That's what it says in the
Yeah.
MOU. That's not what it says here. The
I know.
MOU and this don't match up, is what I'm saying.
In my conversations with our finance director, I am not aware, and finance is not aware of any trustee account. We have
What happened to it?
We have a donation account.
Is it just a typo because the MOU says trustee account? I'm looking at it right here.
So that term has been in there since 2018, and the line item code that was associated with the term trustee account is technically a donation account, which that donation
that happen?
account is earmarked as Ermitinger House donations. And so everything that is going into that is only to be used towards the Ermitinger House, whether it be building maintenance or if we needed to do something for fundraising or a program.
Okay, I won't get into how the trustee account disappeared, but trustee account is completely a separate thing. And
Is it?
the other thing is the city cannot dictate whether or not the Friends half of the money goes into a city account. It's the Friends' money to do what they please with. The city has no jurisdiction to figure out what to do with that half of the money. And in the MOU, it says the money is split between the two, which means the Friends keep their money. If the city part wants to put it into a donation, that's fine. But the Friends of the Ermitinger House have every responsibility to deal with their funds however they feel fit. The city can't dictate that. So the wording in the MOU doesn't match some of these bullet points. I won't get into this all tonight in terms of the accounts, but I want to know what happened and the whole procedure, how we somehow eliminated the trust account and just generically call it a donation account. And I also want to know specifically what happened to the maintenance account, which I know that the maintenance account went into the completion of the Ermitinger House. But that $10,000 maintenance account hasn't been replenished. The $10,000 maintenance account when the Ermitinger House was completed was created after in the process of the restoration of the house, so that there was a $10,000 set aside in the maintenance account for the Ermitinger, so that when the Ermitinger House needed maintenance after the construction, it was there. But we know that the construction of the house took way more, so the city cleaned out that maintenance account, has never re-put the money back into it. So until the city replaces the $10,000 maintenance account, I don't think the Friends of the Ermitinger House is going to give any money back to the city.
We have a building maintenance fund.
Specifically Ermitinger House maintenance.
To my knowledge, the building maintenance line item under the recreation budget is specifically just for the Ermitinger House, because the rest of our facilities under the Park and Recreation Department, we have a separate budget for the pool. That account has a building maintenance for the pool. For the Pioneer Center, they have building maintenance for the Pioneer Center. For the Parks and Cemetery, they have building maintenance for Parks and Cemetery, or their offices, but under recreation, that building maintenance is for the Ermitinger House, and there's $32,000 there per year for that.
But it's labeled recreation account, not Ermitinger House, so how is it?
Well, and that's just the general terms for most.
What's it called, really?
It's recreation, it's a recreation budget.
And it can be spent on anything under recreation.
It's only spent on the Ermitinger House.
But so then why isn't it called the Ermitinger House Maintenance Fund instead of recreation?
We can request that the finance director change the title.
I would, because the title doesn't imply at all. It has anything to do with Ermitinger House.
And we're using, I mean, if you look at the budget, especially coming at the end of this biennium, we are spending money specifically out of that budget to make repairs on that house this year. So there's about $20,000 worth of repairs that we're doing this year specifically on that site.
Okay, we'll talk about that with budget, but saying all the money goes to the city donation, that's not what it says. It says all revenue generated.
All our money is going to go into the dedicated account for Ermitinger House. What I am saying is I would prefer any of the programs that we do that all of the money goes there, and then we can avoid having to do 50-50 splits.
I get
And
that, but-
And we can have the same relationship that we have with our other volunteer groups who support us, where all the money goes directly into like a donation account and there's no splits.
But if a
This is
friend-
the only group we have a split with.
Right. And I get wanting that to happen, but whether it does or not, having that in wording that's different than the actual MOU wording is one of the reasons you haven't gotten an agreement with the Friends of the Ermitinger House on this MOU, which hasn't been in place since 2018. It expired over a year ago.
That's not correct.
Yes, it is correct.
There was one in 2021. It was in our packet.
Will you
I saw it.
Yeah, so the one that
Ermitinger House
expired a year ago, that was one that had been edited from an MOU that went into place back in 2018 when we opened up that site. So when we opened up the site back in 2018 and reconnected our relationship with the Friends Group, an MOU was developed that following January, and ever since then, every year, that MOU has been edited. So that's what,
Yes, but when was it last signed off on?
it was
Under the last staff.
It was last signed off on in 2021, because last
A
year.
year and a half ago, or a year and more. That's what I just said. It's been expired for over a year.
But it was also extended.
Yeah, I mean, we're still following the old one because we haven't
I know,
come to
because
an
you have
agreement
to.
on it.
Because
And
you
there's a
have to. We learned that
multitude.
from our attorney at the last meeting where I told the MOU.
But it was extended before the direction.
I mean, I haven't gone outside of that in the year, but there's a
Because the
multi.
Friends Group is sitting there waiting because they know they're under the same agreement as long as they sit there and wait. The truth of the matter, though, is staff never came to the Friends of the Ermitinger House until way after that agreement expired and wanted to rush it before they were, so that's the issue. So
Can I give some?
don't imply that it was in place.
Can you let her finish?
Can I give some background on why that happened?
I have all the background I need on that, so no, I don't need to hear that.
But we do.
Go ahead, if you want to hear it. It's not exactly
So-
accurate.
The previous aquatic and recreation manager stepped away from that position in October of 2021. I was the interim aquatic and recreation manager and didn't officially step into this position until December of 2022, or 2021. On the list during that staff transition, I was given a list of the projects and priorities for the next 6 months, and it included all of the contracts, and here's what needs to be done at this time. And the Friends MOU wasn't on that list. And even though I worked for the city for, everyone knows I've been here for a very long time, I was not directly involved with the Ermitinger House because I was separated from that because the previous programmer was my sister. And so I was not aware of when that MOU expired, and I thought it expired in July along with the rest of our MOUs. And during our monthly meetings that we had, it wasn't a topic that was brought up, and I didn't become aware of it until the previous MOU was emailed to me at the end of January with edits and for me to sign.
All right, so my simple point was that the city didn't even know they had an MOU agreement and didn't follow through. So trying to imply this has been in place, I mean, the Ermitinger Friends Group had an agreement under another person, hired a new person that didn't know, which is not your fault, but it's your department's fault. And then the agreement changed. It was nothing like the agreement that the Friends Group originally saw under the other staff. So that's why it's been over a year and a lot since the Friends Group has agreed on anything, because this new agreement's nothing close to what the other one was. That's the truth.
I would make an observation and an accounting question. I agree with Commissioner Smith about the division of funds. If this 50-50 thing is in fact correct, which I don't know that it is, but if it is, the Ermitinger House, I would think, would keep theirs, and the city would keep their share. To commingle the funds then begs the question is how are they spent? Who dictates, who makes that decision?
You know exactly who does.
Well, I'm asking. from an accounting viewpoint, and this would go to Mr. Zook, who I'm sure is more than happy to get involved. On your general ledger, are there specific accounts that are earmarked as they say? Is there a maintenance account for the Ermitinger House? Is there an operations account or whatever? Are there specific accounts to which those monies have been deposited? And if you're not prepared to answer that tonight, it can be the answer in a future work session. And I think we need to have a future input on that.
Simple as pulling up the budget and pulling up those particular line items.
Well, I've looked at a lot of
Not that
accounting
simple.
statements, and they've got
Not that simple.
specific accounts to which monies are deposited to be spent in specific ways.
Yeah, and these account names have clearly changed and are being labeled differently, so it's very confusing, because that's not the way it was originally.
Okay, well, then we need to make sure that the account names and the purpose of that are lining up so that they say the same thing. So recreation maintenance needs to, if that's the account, and I believe you, that it should say Ermitinger specifically. So I'm assuming that's a simple, easy budget change. It's not changing the numbers, it's just changing what it's called.
And if we can go a step further,
Sure.
we could break out the Ermitinger House and have all of that separated out individually so there can be more effective reporting as opposed to rolling it into the recreation budget, if that's the direction of the city commission, to hopefully avoid any confusion.
Well, I
in
assumed
regards
it was
to-
already that way.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
and I agree. And I think the Friends Group are more inclined to give their money to the city if they know where it's going. They've never really known where it's gone. And that's what the main discussion is. Does it go to the trust fund, which apparently doesn't exist? What's the donation fund? What's the maintenance fund? Those are all fuzzy names by saying it rec funds. So no, of course, the Ermitinger House is not going to have their money go into that. But if they knew that the maintenance fund for the house was actually labeled Ermitinger Maintenance Fund, like it was not too long ago, you don't think the Friends Group would put money into it? Of course they would. But right now, they don't trust where that money's going because there was a trust account that doesn't exist now. There's a donation account, which they don't know what that is. And there was, as far as we know, an elimination of an Ermitinger account because it actually was in the budget, Ermitinger maintenance, and now it's just rec. So I want to know how all this changed. We can find that later. I'll be asking a lot of that in the budget meetings.
I have a quick question. So the account that's listed in the MOU, which we need to fix that, so 100-319-4746 is an existing account.
Yes, it's a donation account.
So it's a donation account, but it doesn't say Ermitinger donate, I mean.
It says Ermitinger
Okay.
donation. So
So
any
Mr. Zook is saying
of
yes.
the revenue that we have made over the last 4 years from fundraising has gone directly into that account.
Okay, so Mr. Zook is nodding yes that is it's just not called the Ermitinger trustee account?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
So it
And
sounds
that's been the word verbiage when my predecessor had originally created this MOU. This
Name.
was the name and the code that was being used. And this is new information that I have,
Right. So
been
the code is still
learning.
good, we just need to change the name?
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Zook is nodding yes that's an existing account. The name just needs to match up with what it is. Okay. You have a question? Yes, sir.
I do. The 12 hours worth of events, the 12 hours in what period of time?
A year.
A year. And beyond that 12 hours, the Friends of the Ermitinger House, even if they're doing a fundraising event, would be paying the hourly rental fee? What happens in the 12 hours that's different than more than 12 hours?
So the intention behind that, and part of the conversations that we've been having, and kind of what Kendall had touched on previously, so when we look at our calendar year at the Ermitinger House and events and programming, our goal is to do an event once a month at a minimum. Sometimes we do twice a month. The goal is to have the majority of the events and the programs and things that we are doing in that house to be a partnership between us and the Friends group and to split that 50-50. But if the Friends want to, what we're doing is identifying a set aside time where they could do their individual fundraising if they had a goal outside of our goals, if that makes sense. Because sometimes two groups can have, different priorities as far as what they're trying to purchase to achieve for their organization. So like they may need to, build a website or want to promote something else that wouldn't necessarily be directly tied to what we're trying to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but, okay, so over the course of a year, when it goes to hour 13, what's different than hour 12?
Well, our goal is not to charge the Friends group a rental rate. Our goal is if they need additional time associated with their fundraiser, what we propose, we've given them multiple options in regards to what we can do or what we can work out. Obviously, we don't have an agreement. What we've asked is if you're going to do a program on your own, could you put aside a portion of that money towards the overhead expenses associated with the house, where they keep most of the money, but just a portion goes towards maintenance, just the house, and that's just a certain percentage. It's not a fixed rate. If they wanted to go a fixed rate, that would be something that we could discuss with them, but we're not interested in charging them a rental fee in order to do their event at that facility.
Okay, so I'm still confused. What's the 12 hours mean?
Right.
It's, the intention of the 12 hours is typically our events that we do at the house take place between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on a Saturday. So it's setting aside 2 events per year that are dedicated towards that group.
But if they want to do more than that, what's different?
We want to
Do they
make,
have to pay something
Right.
in order to use more than 12 hours for their own events?
What we had offered is a similar percentage to the 50-50 rate, to where if they wanted to do a fundraiser on their own, would they provide 30% of what they brought in towards part of the overhead for the house? Because we have costs associated with the house as an option for them.
There's nothing in the MOU that says that.
If they just wanted to continue to do events with us together, it would just be 50-50.
But the MOU doesn't say that, 30%, 50%.
We
The MOU doesn't
haven't
say.
agreed to anything. So this is an ongoing negotiation to help. And if they needed more time than just the 12 hours to do their own events, we could have that conversation. But that's the whole point of these MOUs, to negotiate what their needs are and to figure out how we move forward.
But that conversation specifically about the 30% versus the 50% has never been brought up.
Yes,
to
it is.
the-
Yes, it is.
it's in the MOU. It was in the agenda packet. It's on.
And I
But
sat
that's not
down-
the wording in the MOU that you've
and we sat
presented to the
down.
Friends
I
group.
sat down with them, with Melissa, to discuss that. We've had that conversation.
It's not in the MOU, though.
Are you talking about the 70-30
It's the
split?
same draft that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have more questions at the other MOUs, but I'm done with this topic.
Well, the 12 hours strikes me as restrictive, and I don't know why one would even impose that on it. And
Well, if you look at the month of March, and you have, so the house is open from 10 to
10 to 4 on Fridays and
Right,
Saturdays.
so that's, what, 6?
it's 6 hours right there. That's one event, 6 hours gone.
Okay, so, and if it's 2 days a month, so you got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you have 8 days that the house will be open in the month of March, and it's 6 hours each. You're saying that 12 of those hours could be used for their exclusive fundraising. Is that how I'm reading that?
Not per month, it's
Well,
per.
I'm just using March
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah.
You're saying 12 hours a year?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say it's restrictive.
So that would-
But remember, that number was based on the number of events that they normally
Yeah, they may- yeah.
do. Now, if they came back to us and said, hey, we want to do more than those 2 or 3, and we would like to get more time, then that's something that we could talk about. But that hasn't been brought to our attention.
See, I
That's
feel the week,
basically, the house is open for 12 hours a week.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I feel that the weakness in this is a point that says, I don't like the verbal agreements to modify a written memorandum of understanding.
Everything that's written on paper, like this PowerPoint and the MOU and various versions of the MOU, all say different things, and none of them say some of the things that we're hearing verbally. That's the problem, and that's why the Ermitinger House won't sign the Friends of the Ermitinger House won't sign off on anything. It's the same reason that the pickleball group refused to sign off on an MOU. It's the same reason that right now, the youth sports and the soccer group say they only signed the MOU they got because they were forced to and didn't think they had any other choice, and now know that this commission is relooking at it and may scratch that MOU, which is why the Friends of the Parks group and the Ermitinger group are sitting there waiting with unsigned MOUs because they know all these MOUs are going to be starting over from scratch.
May I clarify something, please?
Please.
Oregon City Youth Sports contacted me about their rate back in June 2nd of 2022. When we met with them, we did not discuss what the actual rate was going to be. We let them know that we were going to need to discuss rates. We went on to have the conversation with Oregon City Soccer Club, and they agreed to the tiered rate of the 5, 750, and 10. That rate was discussed with the city managers to get approval to try to figure out what is the lowest rate we can charge these groups. Oregon City Soccer agreed to that rate. So I was contacted by Oregon City Youth Sports that said they wanted that same rate on June 2nd, 2022. I did not.
Because they knew they weren't going to get a choice.
I have the emails. I did not mandate that they had to sign anything. I did not tell them that we were going to pull their use. They reached out to me and asked for the rate.
Well, apparently we're in possession of different information.
Apparently.
And I will be more than happy to send the emails.
Yeah, well, and that's why it'd be beneficial to have those groups here, which is, they weren't invited, all these groups were not notified at the last meeting that this MOU topic was on the agenda, nor were they tonight, and you told Carla Laws tonight, we'll let you know when we're having these meetings. So far, we've yet to do that as a city. Staff has never reached out to these MOU groups to say, by the way, this is on the agenda tonight. Not once. They all know about it because they follow it, but they called us today and were wanting to know what the heck was going on with this agenda item and why it was a work session or was a work session or wasn't a work session.
Okay, like I said, Commissioner Smith, I'm only speaking for myself. I'm trying to get
I get it.
grounded, and what I
Because-
got confused about was when the people were here before, I couldn't separate what they were saying from what
I
the city was
understand that.
saying, so I wanted to understand where the city was coming from
I know.
and then get input. So I'm trying to understand where we are starting from so that
I get
we
that.
can have a constructive discussion with the group so that it isn't,
I
he
know.
said, she said, we want this, how come we don't get that?
And I fully support that and I get that. But some of us have been here that whole time and don't need the background because we know it.
I know.
So
Well,
being a new mayor is, yeah, I get you need to do that, but you can do that research just like any of us have.
I have been doing the
Commissioner-
research,
Well,
but it's important that
then
it
you
be-
should know this.
it should be said in a public meeting,
Well, that's
not
why we're
in
saying
meetings
it in
that
a
I'm
public
having with
meeting.
staff by myself.
I know, like on the
So
corner
I
of the
don't
store.
want to do that.
Do we think that if the city partners with the Friends of the Ermitinger House, that we should receive any funds?
Sorry, can't hear you.
Do we believe that if the city partners with the Friends of the Ermitinger House to do an event, should the city receive any of the proceeds from that event?
If those funds go into a dedicated fund only for use of maintenance of the Ermitinger House.
Okay, which it is.
Yes,
And
I
we will
think
name
that-
it whatever the commission likes it to be named. There is a line item for that.
Right, but that's the city's half.
The heat has to get paid for
Right.
somehow. All of those basic, to keep the lights on, have to get paid for somehow. And I think, yes, there should be some
Okay.
amount set aside from events to take care of that basic maintenance. If it's a city 50-50 split or whatever it is, the city's co-sponsoring the event, then obviously that's going to go into that fund. But
Okay.
if it's just somebody else in there, so if I wanted to use the Ermitinger House for something, I would expect that there is a cost of turning the lights on. There's a
Okay,
cost of the alarm system. There's a cost. Those are basic maintenance costs that any building would have, including your house.
Okay, can we?
And yes, those should be covered.
Okay, maybe can we go step by step, maybe? So is there agreement that if we do an event with Friends of Ermitinger House, we should receive some proceeds?
And the amount of those proceeds needs to be documented and allocated, unlike this report on youth sports, which is almost useless to me as a commissioner.
Well, we're only talking about Friends of Ermitinger.
No. I made a reference about
Yeah.
what is an effective report, what is effective documentation that says on an event to cover the costs, maintenance, utilities, and such, this is what it costs us per hour.
Right.
And not some number we pull out of the air, a number that we can document and everybody has confidence in.
Right.
I've got no argument with that, Mr. Conkle.
So we're not specifically set up for specific cost allocation and recovery. So on an event, is 50-50 fair? Or should it be, would the commission like to see a different split of that event? This is the one where the city's co-sponsoring an event with Friends of Ermitinger House. So we all agree we should collect something related to the operations and involvement of that event.
So we have a staff person there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
we have
yes.
a 20-hour-a-week position dedicated.
Yeah, I would concur with that.
Okay, so we've identified 50-50.
I'm not set on 50-50.
Okay.
Well, even if it is 50-50, the Friends of the Ermitinger House, their 50% is their 50%. It doesn't
Okay.
go to the city, it goes wherever the Ermitinger Friends Group wants it to go.
Okay, and is there agreement on that?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, so we are comfortable at 50-50. The city takes their 50%, puts it in the dedicated line item. The Friends Group keeps their 50%. That's what you'd like to see the MOU say.
That's only on partnered events.
Right, nope, that's all we're
Yeah,
on.
we're only talking about partner.
I agree with that.
So the question I have, Mr. Conkle, is the things that Mr. Smith is concerned about. Why can't we see a draft, regardless of whether the Friend sees it or not, I think we need to see a draft MOU that matches up with everything that we're saying, so we don't have these inconsistencies that you're pointing out, so that we can actually review this. Because, again, I understand what you're saying, but if it says one thing here on this and it says something else in here, let's get the terms right, at this point in time, I'm not saying you present this to Friends of Ermitinger, but you're presenting it to us. What is it that you would like to see? Let's get the document in draft form, updating whatever this is, so that it says what you want it to say, so that we are all looking at the same thing, and that the PowerPoint doesn't say something different from the MOU, that we get the terms correct, the numbers correct, so that we're all looking at the same thing. That's where I'm, because I have the prior packet here as well that we have, and I was trying to go back and forth, and they basically say the same thing, but I'm still confused because there's some, you're saying we'd like to have this, but it's not.
Right.
It's not, and maybe it gets taken out, but at least it's got what you'd like, what your department is saying, we would like to see this.
I think it would be beneficial to see all the versions, the 2018 version, and the current, or at least the 2018 version and the current one, so you can see how close they are.
Are they supposed to be close? I don't know.
Well, it was stated that they were very close, and the new agreement has most of what was in the old agreement. That's debatable, but we could look at it and say, how much was the original agreement to the one now, and why hasn't the Friends Group signed off on it, because it was so different. I'd also, in the same realm, want to see all of the different master fee schedules since 2001. I've seen at least 4 versions, and every time I look at it, it's different. All the Friends Groups and all the people with these MOUs have been sending me fee schedules. Staff have been sending me fee schedules. There's multiple versions. How many versions are there? Because we're all seeing different ones. So I've at least seen 3 or 4 versions. And this one that we're seeing tonight has changed since the last time I saw it, I think.
I have the one July 22nd.
That's part of why there's issues here. Because people are saying, well, that's not the one we saw. This is not the one we saw. And I've seen 4 versions of just the fee schedule in the last, So I'd like to see all those changes, because we're not seeing that. And they're not dated. They're not individually dated, updated this date.
Cheryl sent me one that's the exact same one that the city gave me.
This one?
It's dated Oregon City Parks and Recreation's master fee schedule effective July 1.
Don't go by that. We needed the date when it was updated.
That's the one
Cheryl
Cheryl gave me.
Yeah, but that doesn't say when it was updated last.
So
That's the one she gave me.
For an individual, so then the Friends Group does their own event. What would the commission, would you prefer we just charge them a flat fee or a percentage of what they make?
I think if we can't delineate that it costs $25 an hour to keep the lights on, the heat on, the alarm, then it probably has to be a flat fee. If we can't get down, because I guess I would want, you're saying we don't do that.
It's $2,600 a month to just have the Ermitinger House open and have it staffed.
Okay, so if we took out, so if it's a Ermitinger-sponsored event, I'm assuming a staff person has to be there. Okay, so it seems to me we need to cover that.
That's not necessarily true, because I think in the MOU, or at least past MOUs, the Ermitinger House Friends Group were able to do events without staff there and have a key.
Is that the case now?
Yeah, it's in the current MOU that we're negotiating.
So,
okay, so
part of my point is every building in this city is different. That's my point. We're opening a can of worms. So if we say that the Friends of the Ermitinger has an event and they want to split the money, half goes to the city, and the other half, or the half of the city goes to the Ermitinger House, then if someone rents the pool, that money should go right to the pool. If someone rents Wesley Lynn Park, that money should go to Wesley Lynn Park, because that park is being used. That's where the maintenance is going to be used. That's a big can of worms, because that's not where we're at. But if we start doing one thing to one building, then we got to do it citywide. And that's why I'm saying this crosses over with event rentals, park usage, this crosses over with tourism, because there's things on here about special events when our own Parks Department says we're not using the word special events anymore, and here it is, special events. We had tourism that we defined what a special event was, what it wasn't, whether or not Parks Department was using it, whether tourism, do you not remember all these conversations? I want you to understand how massive this it is. This is not just this little piece or this little piece. It's all tied together, and it all has to work, and it's not working.
I don't think the Ermitinger House can be treated the same as Wesley Lynn Park. My
point is, if someone rents a festival it does an event at Wesley Lynn Park, the damage to renting that park, the damage to the park goes to that park. So why wouldn't that rental fee go to that park?
That's not a question. That's not a question for me to answer.
Because we're creating a special situation here through an MOU with a Friends Group.
Which is not consistent with
do
MOUs
direct
for the other Friends
allocation.
Groups in this city.
We don't do direct allocations. We don't take somebody's water bill on Leland Road and put it in a Leland Road fund. There is some general fund requirements we're not going to break out every park. It wouldn't be possible. This is a unique situation.
I agree.
With a handful of MOUs that we're trying to negotiate for the use of city facilities. So I understand where Commissioner Smith is coming from. We are trying to move in that direction, right? The concern has been that we do all these things differently for every different group. And so we're trying to get standardized. And that means we need some direction on what would you like us to do with this MOU. We will write what you want.
I would like it to accurately reflect the costs of each facility. People read meters. You know how much electricity is used at Ermitanger. You know how much is used at the pool. You know how much water is consumed in each of those places. Is that too much? Is that too much to ask?
So let's just say simple math. Open 2 days a week. Okay? 8 days. Okay? $2,600 a month. $325 a day.
What does that 2,600 capture?
Staff and
Now,
maintenance.
wait, I want the gentleman to answer.
In costs associated with the power bill, just keeping the doors open, electricity, things like that.
So it captures all utilities.
Utilities and our staff person.
Is there any depreciation or restoration dollars in that 2,600?
I'm not aware if it's in there. That was a number I requested from finance.
So utilities and staffing is what you're telling me.
So $325 a day. I mean, I don't think that's not what we're going to subsidize it.
If 2,600 is accurate, that's an accurate calculation.
Yeah, I really.
I want to see it.
I really firmly believe that the Ermitanger House is an exception. It is not like any other facility that we have. It is not the pool. The parks, to me, are kind of all in one lump. You know, they're all parks. I don't separate Wesley Lynn from Clackamat. They're all parks. So to me, that's a fund over there. The Ermitanger House is really a different animal. It came to us in a different way. It was gifted. It's got, you know, we have taken responsibility for it according to Mrs. Power's wishes. And again, to me, that puts it separate. So I'm thinking back to the negotiations that I've done with the Park Service and regarding the McLaughlin House. They inherited a friends group. We don't call ourselves a friends group because we don't want to be in that category, but essentially to them, that's what we are. So we are the exception in their park system because normally they create the friends group. We are not that. We're like the Friends of the Ermitanger. We help manage the house. We have an MOU. It's very specific to that site, and I don't have a problem with us creating an MOU that's specific to the Ermitanger because it's not like anything else. It's very different. So if we want to talk about I don't know how the other commissioners feel. Do we want to talk about a flat fee, or do you want to talk about a percentage? Because, you know, if they get $100 and it's 20% of that versus a flat fee of whatever that, and I mean, I'm just going to throw out $50, the flat fee of $50 for when they use the house. So I don't know where you want to fall out. I understand that they are linked, that these things are linked, but they're not all commingled. Again, I think you're on the right track with separating the Ermitanger House out. When we get to the ball fields and the parks, it's a separate category under the same umbrella. Do you have any concerns about having a flat fee or a percentage?
I would have concerns over a flat fee in the case that there was an event that brought in less than optimal amounts of money, where a flat fee would take an outsized amount of that money.
I'd agree with that.
You agree with that?
I agree with what Commissioner Marl said, and I agree with what you said, Mayor, as far as it's a specific instance, but if we're going to quote $2,600, and you show me where that came from. You show me the monthly operational bills on that, utilities and whatever else is captured in that figure.
I think a percentage is probably the way to go. I mean, what we were provided listed both a 70-30 split and $40 an hour. That seems excessive to me, but I think a 70-30 split on events that they exclusively do.
I don't like the $40 an hour either.
That probably makes sense. But again, the city's 70% would go to that dedicated account, and their 30%
Oh, I thought the 70
goes
was
to
the
them.
other way.
The 70 is the other way.
We would only take 30.
They would only
I'm
take-
sorry,
yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. But the 30% would go, again, into that dedicated account, and the
Right.
70% would be theirs,
To
under
use.
their control.
Yeah, but that's
Yes,
why I was
and-
saying.
And forget about the $40 an hour, or
yeah.
any amount per hour.
Okay, so is that clear? Do you have any objection to this?
I agree with that
Okay,
statement.
go ahead.
Well, and I just want to make it clear that the goal of this commission, regardless of the difference of opinions on how we want to get there, is this is for the public, is that we all recognize that this is a special site, as you were referencing. We want more bodies to be in there, but by virtue of having more bodies, that causes the building to deteriorate more. So we're trying to figure out a way that we can sustainably preserve this building. And so
Maintain
I want the
perpetuity.
public to be very clear that this is not trying to be a money grab. We're trying to figure out a way that we can preserve this for future generations while making sure that our nonprofits are valued and are valued stakeholders in these conversations.
I agree with you, because basically, the city of Oregon City, I believe, I hope is going to exist in perpetuity. And so we are caretakers of this property, this very significant historic property in not just Oregon City, but to the entire state and the nation. And we are trying to be fiscally responsible, historically responsible by doing that. So, like I said, if we can go back and revise this document to put what you have told us in this document and stop having the inconsistencies, we will get a long ways. And then we can take this back out, have the public comment come in, the friends, and they can talk about it. But, in essence, they're going to have to sit down with you. But at least we are trying to set some direction for this particular set of circumstances.
And it would be important for me to understand the difference between the maintenance account and the donation account, and what the donation account can be spent on by the city, and what the maintenance account can be on. Because that's going to determine whether or not the Friends Group agrees to whether or not they support your money going in either one of those accounts. I have a feeling the Friends Group would support more a fund that goes to maintenance of the house than a regular fund that the city's going to spend on whatever they want. So I think it's really clear to say, if that money is going one way or the other, whether it's Friends of the Hermitainer House money or the city's for half of the events, I think it's very much important that the Friends Group understand where that money is going, because in the past, money that has gone into various accounts, the accounts have changed their names, and the money has been spent on things they were told it wasn't, which is why they won't sign this.
Well, again, I think I've heard a lot of discussion from public members, and I can't substantiate all of what they're saying, because I don't have any documentation that funds have been spent for something that they...
I'm telling you, I have that knowledge of myself as a commissioner seeing it.
I understand.
I'm telling you that.
But you're asking for proof, so I would like proof of that as well.
Yes.
From that side. It's people want you to make a snap decision, and my decision-making process, I want to hear both sides of the story so that I can understand where the middle is. And I've been told X, Y, and Z by the public. I've been told this by the staff, and I can't make the two things jive.
So I've asked tonight about the description of how those accounts got to where they were, why they changed names, so that will give you some background. Because I would like to know that, and then we'll find out where the background is.
Well, they call it one thing, it's listed as another thing. They're saying it's the same thing.
You
so-
understand that the trust was something that was part of Ruth Power's trust, and for the city to then say, well, there's no trust account anymore,
Okay.
you don't think that's an issue?
Well, I've seen the documentation from the Holmes house that Mrs. Powers put together, and believe me, I use that as my Bible. So there was there something in
The
the
city
original
probably doesn't
agreement when
even know
Mrs.
about
Powers
that.
gave the house to the city that there was a trustee account? I mean, she did, let's just say she wasn't always consistent in the way she did things, as I've discovered.
Are you talking about the deed?
Or the deed, or whatever it was she created to transmit. She usually always gave some money. That was her MO. She gave money to whatever house it was that she was fixing up, and this was supposed to be for this particular purpose. That's what I'm familiar with the Holmes house.
I've seen a deed with the Ermitinger House from her, but I can't remember exactly what it stated. I don't recall something about a trustee account on it.
Yeah, you probably should look at it.
Mainly reflected like the property being gifted.
She always had these other little side agreements, which I have a copy of from the Holmes house. It's basically said that I'm giving you $100,000 for the maintenance of the house, and you need to keep this account in perpetuity. So that's what we've been doing. She may have done such, I know she did something like that with the Ainsworth house, and like I said, it was kind of all over the place.
Moving right along.
Are we comfortable as a group with 12 hours and I'm going to make sure I understand this, under 12 hours, the money would go entirely to the Friends group. Over 12 hours, it would go 70% to the Friends group and 30% to the dedicated account.
So partnered
No, I'm
events
not.
only.
No, that's for non-partnered events.
That's for Friends and Rotary.
Friends group
Only.
event
Okay.
only.
Okay,
We
The
talked about
50/50 split is
70-30.
for the
is for the partner.
is for the partnered group. Under 12-hour, Friends Group only events, all the money goes to them. Over 12 hours, their group, their events, 30% to the city, to the dedicated account, 70% to them. Are we comfortable with that also?
I am not sure that the 12 hours is,
Reasonable.
Neither am I. That's why I brought it up.
Neither am I.
if they're in the house, regardless of whether it's a sponsored event or their event, there's still going to be expense. It doesn't, the hours don't matter to me. There's still an expense. And so somehow or another, our cost has got to be recovered so that it goes into that maintenance account, or whatever we're going to call it.
Do we care if it's 12 hours?
No.
So if we've agreed that if we partner, it's 50/50.
Right.
If they go it alone,
It's 70-30.
70 them, 30 us. We'll just remove the, if they want to do one event, if they want to do 10.
They want to do
I don't know
event
that
every
it matters,
weekend,
does it?
then it's
Okay.
70-30.
Because if we're setting the rate at a 70-30 split for them to do their own event on their own, then I don't know that it matters how many events they do.
I don't think it does either, and that's why I wanted to say, what's the point of that?
Okay.
Well, but then you have to account for after-hours events, and whether or not a staff person needs to be there, whether or not the Ermitinger Friends Group has a key to do events in the house. Those are all other issues that aren't considered in this.
Well, it needs to be in there.
I know.
I mean, if the city doesn't feel comfortable with having them operating on their own at this point in time, then it still there has to be some accountability.
Right.
If it's outside of those hours, if they have the, let's do a seance at midnight.
Right, but if you look at the 2018 version, I think part of that was they were doing events on their own with the key to the house. So from going from that to not, that was a big jump.
Well, that's got to be
So
negotiated.
I think you need to see the evolution of that to understand why the Friends Group is having concerns about this and still have. So this is getting closer, but there's a lot of other questions that
I
this doesn't
understand.
answer.
So what do you guys feel about that, generally?
I mean, or in the current MOU, there is a key checkout process and a process that's defined for the Friends Group to, access and go into the house for events without a city staff member, and that is not something that we necessarily edited. What we changed was the process for splitting the fees when they do those type of events where they do come and check out that key and don't have a staff person on site, but they're still using the facility.
Okay, so then that's not an issue then. So then, again, let's get the agreement lined up with what we've talked about and what you guys want, so that we're on one document, and after that, I don't care what happened in 2018 with the document, because we're talking about the document today and what we want to try to get to, and we can get input from the group. So if you've got a checkout process, then it's not an issue. Obviously, the city would have discretion to say, no, we don't really feel comfortable with that event or what, I mean, we always have the first right of refusal to say we don't feel comfortable with that type of an event, so no, we don't want, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be talking about, well, we want to do X, Y, or Z, I mean, whatever it is, and we are going to be dealing with each thing.
Yeah, and there are specific events where we'll ask them to specify that it's not something that we're necessarily agreeing to, if that makes sense. So for example, like some of the, late night investigation and the ghosts and stuff, that's not something that like we as a city want people to think that we're
We're
saying.
promoting it, yes.
Yeah.
I understand.
So
the
there
Park
are
Service-
specific.
Yeah, the Park Service has the same regulations. They do not want any paranormal activity going on in their it doesn't matter who's
That's
doing
not
it.
something they can control.
No. They can do it in the yard, but they will not allow it in the house. That's just verboten. I mean, it's not even a topic of discussion. It's like, no. And it came from on high, not our region. It came from beyond on high. It came from Washington, D.C. So that's the, there's
Wonder
no,
how they deal with that in Gettysburg.
I don't know. I'm telling you what they're telling us for this unit.
It's different units.
Obviously, yes, they're different units. Okay, so we have some general agreement?
So my understanding is that we're going to take this back.
Okay, and it's getting close to 10 o'clock.
Right.
And I don't want to go on to any other items tonight. I don't know about you guys, but I'm done. You want to adjourn at 10?
I'd really like to do a touch on Oregon City and youth sports. And I don't need to do it in depth. I've taken the time to look at the history and the thoughts behind the times and dug up some documents and looked at the intent and the value of that to this community. And I am respectful of what Parks Department is trying to do in terms of garnering funds for our parks. I'm just not sure, I'm not even sure what this approach contributes to that. And we've got a budget process coming up, and maybe we can approach it in a different manner. If you want to talk about your approach to this, I've got my notes, and I've got a ton of them. But I could summarize it pretty quickly.
Okay. So the main thing I want to just briefly touch on with sports field fees is the rate was established back in 2000.
We need to stop you for a minute because it is, that clock may be a little fast. I've got 10:50.
9:57.
9:57. So we need to make a motion if we're going to go beyond 10 o'clock. If not, we are not.
I would like to make a motion to go no later than 10:30 as we have before.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye. I apologize, I may need to stand up, but aye.
Already passed that.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam-Mayoral,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
I'm going to say no because I'm still suffering from jet lag and I don't want to go beyond to 10:30. So it has nothing to do with youth sports. It's just me. I'm ready to be done. So, and I'm in the minority, so that's fine.
Do you want to make
Yes,
your...
the fee was established back in the year 2000, 22 years ago. So it was determined that Oregon City Youth Sports and Oregon City Soccer weren't be charged a fee, but that fee has always been established, and it has been charged to other organizations, other youth sports organizations. I completely agree with Commissioner Smith in regards to the impact that these sports organizations have on youth. What we're trying to address here is inconsistency associated with implementing these fees. Because right now, what we've been doing the past 22 years is telling one group, you're making that same impact in this kid's life, but you're going to pay the fee. But this other group, we're not going to charge the fee. We have Oregon City Soccer. They're currently on this tiered structure. They're paying the fee, they've agreed to it. So if we're going to come back and say, okay, Oregon City Youth Sports, we're going to treat you differently, for us, we need to be able to express the reason behind why we're doing that. Because we're trying to be fair and equitable. It's a rental to us based on the work that we've done with our financial sustainability model. So there's a certain percentage that we're trying to recover. We've cut the fee in half for them. They've increased their rates considerably, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to reduce them whether they get a reduction in rate or not. And we are also trying to showcase that we're not any different than any other Parks and Recreation department. You'll see in the chart that was provided, can you go to that for me, Melissa? If you look at the fees are fairly low compared to our counterparts. So if you look at the Westlands, the Wilsonvilles, North Clackamas, Lake Oswego's, Tualatin Hills, Willamette Lane, and Albany's, their fees are considerably more than ours. And right now, we're showing the actual rate versus the rate that we're charging or proposing to charge Oregon City Youth Sports and Oregon City Soccer, and even Hillendale Pickleball Club. If you go to the next slide, you'll also see the additional fees that these other districts and departments are charging on top of the rental fee. And if you see at the very top, we're not charging any of that. We know that in order to maintain the sports fields, it costs us about $33,000 annually to do that. And I know we owe you a report, and we will definitely get that information to you, itemizing out the cost associated with the work that we're doing.
Time out a minute. Are you telling me $33,000 per sports field per year?
For Oregon City Youth Sports, for managing the sports fields.
All of them.
And the time it takes specifically for Oregon City Youth Sports.
All of the fields?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not per field.
Pardon?
Not per field.
Okay.
Total.
Yeah, total. So we're coming at it, we're trying to be fair. We're trying not to put any undue burden on Oregon City Youth Sports. They've already passed the cost on, and as you can see here, we're not trying to take advantage of anyone. We're just trying to recoup some of our costs associated with the sports fields. They reached out to us and requested this rate. It wasn't forced upon them, and we wanted to be consistent with them. We wanted to be consistent with Oregon City Soccer, and we wanted to be consistent with Hillendale Pickleball Club and treat them in a similar fashion. So I think that pretty much covers it in regards to sports fields. John can speak to all the maintenance associated with maintaining the fields. John has been on call for Oregon City Youth Sports, night, day, weekends. He'll go in to address any issues in regards to maintenance. So we're very attentive to their needs, and we're always looking for ways where we can improve. So they're not aware of all the work that goes into managing the sports fields, but we provided that list of everything that kind of goes into that. So we feel like that this is fair, and we approach this in a fair manner with Oregon City Youth Sports.
Well, now I'll speak, because there's a substantial disagreement on that. At some point, you're going to give me the costs associated with what you think are specific to sports fields as opposed to the parks in general. And the sports field itself is a small component of what you're going to do. You're going to cut the grass regardless. You're going to do herbicides regardless. I know that the Oregon City Youth Sports budget is $103,000 per year. Can you accomplish what they accomplish? Can you provide the ability to play ball to a minimum of 550 kids? Can you do that? Would we be able to do that as a city if they didn't exist? $103,000, how far would that get you? And I'm not being disrespectful. I know what your task is, but I'm telling you, we have to value the impact of volunteers. Now, I don't know, who wrote this report about 40% here and 10% here?
I did.
I don't understand what that means. It's like 10% of what? Move soccer goals to weed, whack, and mow, plus 90%. You know, I live there. I could walk you over there right now, and I'll tell you what, they didn't move those soccer goals. And I don't, 90% of what figure? So I'm not going to sit here tonight and run this through I'm not going to shred this report because I don't want to do that. But Oregon City Youth Sports has responded and taken issue with each of these things about, are these services really provided? And according to them, they're not. So maybe we all need to get in a room together. But what I care about the most is I looked at the history of this. I've got a document from Oregon City Parks and Recreation, 2001. And it says for fees, youth leagues are free, but all other scheduled uses are $10, 2001, authored by
D. Craig?
D. Craig.
Yeah, I provide one in the back.
So we didn't charge. And then I look at some, I interviewed people and people that knew people and not charging Oregon City Youth Sports, baseball and soccer, fees to use our sports fields. It was the direction we had received from Scott Archer that this was a community service to have youth sports use the fields. They were trying to support the community. There was a matrix fee at $10 per hour, but that was for adult sports and shelter reservations and et cetera. The history is that again, there's other people that contributed to my findings that youth sports had not been charged field use. And they weren't because we, as a parks department, could not offer these services. Certainly could not offer them in a cost-effective manner, not for $103,000. That's probably one employee plus benefits, knowing the cost structure that we incur. So the understanding was that youth sports would provide the services as a partnership because it was too expensive for the city to pay staff persons to offer this level of service. We simply had no one to run the program. Apparently it was a priority for Larry Potter, who was previous parks manager, who I don't know, to have this available to our youth. It kept kids engaged and provided an activity. And according to this history, there never was a resolution adopted about the $10 fee. The only resolutions were about smoking or non-smoking in the park. But really, what I really feel is important is something that I'd ask you to put up. In the John Lewis tradition, I have a slideshow. The good news is it's one slide. And that's my thought. And that comes from a great American. Frederick Douglass said it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I would say it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken children, repair broken adults. So when I look at it, and I look at the value of sports, and you know that I was a participant in this. I did it for 6 years. Boys and girls of all skill levels, up to including fifth in the United States. But they have a $103,000 budget that they provide 550 plus kids this ability. And what's the value of it? Look at the current situation that we have in this city, in this country. The current situation, we've had COVID, we've had isolation, we've had lack of self-discipline. We have lack of respect for the self and for others. The values that you teach as a coach, the values that you teach in youth sports are not just a skill set, not how to play baseball or how to kick a soccer ball. They're transferable skills, and it's a value to this community as a whole. There's skills like teamwork and respect for others and respect for yourself, and understanding of the values and shortcomings of others, a commitment and a sense of community pride. So what I'm saying is it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults. And I think whatever that amount is, we should subsidize it. And I'm sympathetic to the park situation. But let's see, we got a budget committee coming up. There's got to be a better way to do this than on the backs of children. So that's my point. I've got all the numbers. You've got your number. We can have a numbers battle. That's not the point. That's the important thing. And I think we need to look in our hearts and we need to do it. And that's where I leave it with you. Thanks.
So I don't think we disagree with anything Commissioner O'Donnell just said, at all. What the cost recovery tried to do was to identify as a local government when our facilities are utilized by organizations that charge and use the field for their members, should we collect anything? And this is the policy. This is it. Is it zero? We say youth sports, whether it's soccer, swimming, baseball, lacrosse, whatever it may be, right? I think every one of those bring aspects of what Commissioner O'Donnell just said. So we need policy direction. Do we recoup a portion, all, none? Okay, I think that's what we're stuck on here, and we've been stuck on this one for a while. Okay, we proposed a 3-year implementation at $5, $7.50, $10 to get to a fee created 23 years ago that's never gone up. And that's another policy choice. So I don't think any of us are here to debate the merits of what youth sports, adult sports bring from recreational health, character build, community, right? I would also point out, and we have organizations that draw from well outside of the city limits of Oregon City. And you know, this is not a black and white easy answer, right? But these are what they are. And, you know, should the city taxpayer subsidize a youth sport that draws from outside the city limits, right? That's another great policy. And you guys get to decide that, not me.
Well, let me answer that.
Sure.
Of the 550 kids, you know how many came from outside city limits? 2.
This
2
year.
kids. This year.
Here, yeah.
I mean, and some of those kids are probably scholarship. I know this, that sometimes Oregon City Sports pays their way. So, I mean, we can have a philosophical discussion, which I think I stand by that slide, because I know the kids that I coached, I know what they went on to do. But I look at these costs, and if I start getting these costs, we're going to have a slugfest, because they're absurd. You know, I mean, I only want to get into it. I want to get into what's best for this community. Do you want the kids to do this? Anybody that's raised a child knows you keep them busy. You install values. Do you want to deal with them now and make this investment? Or do you want Jim Band and his merry men to have to deal with certain ones of them? And it can happen.
They are merry.
It happens. So I believe that we should make this investment. Now, what do we do tonight? Maybe tonight we just suspend all these MOUs until such time as we delve into them in depth and we figure it out. Because you're trying to accomplish something, and I'm appreciative of that. But I mean, when we look at it, how much does this $5, $7.50, what does that add to the coffers? And is there another way to do it? And that's what I'd like to hear. So for me, if I were to make a motion, I would suspend these MOUs, because obviously they're either incomplete or flawed or need, you know, some of these people, and this is why I want everybody in the same room, which is why tonight's not the time. They would say they were essentially coerced into signing. You take a different position, and I'm not going to decide one way or the other. But I go back to that saying that I had posted up there. Invest in your youth, because I've got a teacher sitting next to me. He knows what goes on at the school. Where am I going to teach these values? They're not at the school. They're on the field of competition. And as a coach, you don't teach skills. You teach life values. That's it. I've preached enough for tonight.
So, Mr. Reed, based on your experience with another park and recreation district and other places that you've employed, so if a jurisdiction manages these types of activities, so let's say City A has a youth softball, baseball, whatever it is, program, there obviously, in my opinion, I'm assuming there's a charge for someone to participate in that, and I think that might be your experience as well, Melissa, that there is a charge. So what I'm wrestling with, that I'm trying to look at it from the standpoint, okay, if we were doing this program ourselves and we had the capacity to do it, what would we be doing versus what these private groups are doing? So again, I don't know where all their money goes, whatever they're charging the students to participate in this sport. I mean, I assume it goes for uniforms, equipment, I don't know. So my son was not in that, he was in basketball, and there was a fee that we paid for him to participate in that. So that's my only familiar. And then he also was on the swim team at his school, so there was a fee that we paid for them to use the pool. All the other stuff that, was, the pool had the lanes, all that stuff, we had to just buy new swimwear and whatever, goggles and that kind of thing. But, so, generally, I don't know if you can answer this, but if we were doing the program, we would have our staff, we would have, a league or whatever it would be, and there would be some cost associated with that. I don't know what that would be, but, so, is there essentially a difference between what they're doing and what we might do if we had that type of a program?
Well, to speak honestly, most park and recreation departments aren't running youth sports leagues. It's this situation that we currently have where outside leagues come in and just rent out the facility.
Okay, so that's pretty typical.
And there are fees associated with that. Most park and recreation departments aren't taking that on and providing that as a service.
Okay, that's good to know, because I didn't think so, but I just wanted to ask the question. So this is like you said, they are charging whatever it is, $250 for their participants to play, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then what we're saying, and I'm just trying to, in my head, I'm not saying that the fee is fair or whatever, I'm just saying, so we are asking the organizations which are using our facilities to pay some minimal cost for using city property.
Yeah.
And the details, I'm not asking for the details, I'm just saying that's generally what the scope is. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, Commissioner O'Donnell. I think it is, particularly in this day and age, it was different when you and I were growing up, we were busy all the time. So we, not that we didn't get into trouble, but I still have to put the sports facilities and because they're in a park. It's not necessary to be a sports facility by itself. They're in a park, which to me, I'm putting all the parks together regardless of the activity that is happening in that park. It's still a park. It's still Chapin Park. It's still Hillendale Park, or whichever park it is. That's the parks. And I'm not separating out who's using it. I'm looking at it as a category versus the Ermatinger House, which is different. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm not separating out the user. I'm looking at it from a park standpoint of there's a parks maintenance fee and there's maintenance for all of the parks, regardless of what's actually happening in them. And that's part of what we are I'm trying to understand. That's what we're trying to recover to some degree.
Yes.
Okay, so that's my baseline.
And to add to that, we've had conversations with finance, because there's a lot of conversations about where does this money go? And we talked about the same thing with Ermatinger House. So what we propose is to earmark the money that comes in for sports fields, to where we retain that money and reinvest it back into maintenance and park projects. So it stays with the department, because I know that was a concern for the City Commission and also for Oregon City Sports.
My question, the allocation of costs is important. You're going to cut the grass in a park no matter what. And the infield is taken care of by Oregon City Youth Sports. So they should not be bearing the cost of cutting the grass. I mean, at what point do we start charging a guy for walking his dog in the park or throwing a Frisbee in the park?
Well, picking up dog do, I think we should be charging people.
Not picking it up.
I agree with that.
Yeah, charging them when they don't pick it up. I'm being
Anyhow,
facetious.
I'm going to yield the floor to whomever wants to speak.
Mr. Mitchell does.
I don't know where I'm going to land on this. I'm still in listening mode, and I definitely want to hear from the community again. But just a couple of thoughts. I think of this more as exclusive use fee rather than just a use fee. If I want to rent a picnic shelter and have that dedicated so that I can have my family reunion or whatever, and I know it's going to be dedicated, there's some value to that, and I should pay something for that. Yep. But if I just want to roll up with my family and take my chances, I shouldn't have to pay for that. That's what my taxes pay for.
That's right.
Same analogy with the baseball group, or youth sports, or youth soccer. If they didn't want to reserve the fields, if they just wanted to roll up and take their chances, they're just another user. But the fact is, they want to have that dedicated to them, and I think there should be a fee with that. I don't know about $10. And I'm going to bring up something on fees just for everybody to think about. And that is something that is very common in the business world in pricing, and that's quantity discount. And this is a way that we could treat all groups fairly, and that would be to say that the first X number of hours of reservations in a fee, in a season, is this amount of money. Over that amount, it's substantially less. And the reason I bring it, I think it might make sense. Mr. Waverly and his crew are going to mow that field one time a week, or what, I don't know what your schedule is, but let's say one time a week, whether there's 2 games or 10 games on it. So I think it might make sense, and you could, I know one of the things we're really trying to get to is consistency, and you could be consistent with a company picnic that wants to have a 4-hour block on one day, that's $10 an hour, or an adult league that maybe has one night a week across the season, that might be $10 an hour. For a heavy user group like the baseball, like youth sports, X number of their hours might be at that $10 an hour, but because our marginal cost of dealing with those fields is not going up proportionally with their use, maybe there's a lower rate. I just want to throw that out there so everybody can kind of noodle it around in their heads before we come back to this at another date.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I just would like to see the practical, how it would work.
I'll counter that with,
Sure.
we have a pool where there's going to be costs associated with the pool, regardless if somebody's in it or not in it. But when the swim team comes, they have to pay a fee. And the fee is consistent per hour as to what they're going to be paying. We're not discounting it based on the fact that we're always going to have the pool and we're always going to have costs associated with the pool that we're going to have to pay whether we're having swim team or not having swim team.
So you're saying the same applies to the fields?
Yeah.
Excuse me, let me not do that.
Yeah.
The park.
The park.
The
Yeah.
park. Yes, right ahead.
So all of this is, I say, as someone who actually did participate in these programs as a child who grew up in this community. I agree with the analogy that Commissioner Mitchell just gave, and in fact, what you said is what I said to the neighborhood association representatives who were angry about having to pay fees to use the shelters. I said, who's to say you don't just show up? That's their right to do it. But if you want to have exclusive use for something, I think there ought to be a fee for that. And I think when we jump into this vocabulary of coercion, it begs the question, when are we coercing developers to pay SDCs when they're providing the benefit of providing housing for our community? I think that's a very, I understand where that's coming from, but like I said from the beginning of this conversation, there are lots of, on both sides of this dais, there are people saying certain things are true while the other says that's not true. There were complaints coming into this that there wasn't enough community input, so I don't understand why we would make a decision tonight when we felt like there wasn't enough community input. So I'm not sure what the right rate will be, and I don't want to put this on the backs of the children in this community, again, as someone who partook in that and absolutely sees the benefit of it. What my concern is that we balance that with the ability to provide quality parks, which consistently our residents are saying are not up to par, because we have not been investing in them. And so as we head into the next budget, as we head into the years to come, there are separate conversations to have about that. Do we want to look at a parks bond? I know that's something that's been floated a lot of times, and I think that would be a worthwhile conversation to have. But for right now, I just want to hear more information, and I appreciate you guys for coming by and giving us this presentation.
We did put a question in last year, the 2 years ago survey about parks bond. So that was something that we asked because this commission decided that we wanted to ask that question. Now that was 2 years ago, but it was actually quite favorable. That if it was something to the effect of, if we were to propose a parks bond to go towards maintenance to get our facility back up to where they need to be, would you support that? And we had overwhelming support. Now, that doesn't mean that's true today, because we've had inflation, we've had COVID, but at least that's a baseline to start with. But again, I'm not saying that I don't support youth activities. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of what you brought up. You're talking about reserving something for exclusive use that nobody else can use while you have it reserved. So I'm not saying I'm going to show up with my posse and we're going to want to play baseball. So, but I could. But if it was reserved, I wouldn't be able to.
Well, and I just want to put into perspective, the house that I live in right now is the house that my mother grew up in. It's a house that my grandparents lived in. And when I was a child visiting my grandparents, we would go to Rivercrest Park. The equipment that is there is the equipment that is still there. And so what I want us to be aware of is that, yes, we need to prioritize these services to our children, but what about the children who also want to use the playground? What about those of us who are wanting to enjoy our parks, but are not, they're not being kept up to par because we just don't have the funding?
We're going from
And I
crisis
say
to
that's a
crisis,
budgetary
which is what we've been
item.
doing.
It's a budgetary item. How do we
Absolutely.
pay for that?
As I mentioned to you, I could name on all my hands all the parks directors that I have worked with and under during my tenure in this town.
I could too.
And you can too, and we have
Lots.
never, ever gotten to this point because there's been pushback. Why are you charging us? And they've just kind of caved. So, I mean, you have had the guts to bring this forward. Don actually brought this to our attention. He said, Don Robertson, when he was interim, said this is something that we needed to deal with. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a tough decision. We're not going to make everybody happy, but we need to come to some sort of common ground so that we can get somewhere. So we've talked about one particular facility. We've given them direction. I think we need to go back. You know, maybe you can send me a formula or something about what you're talking about with this, your quantity pricing, because obviously I've not been in your business, but so I can understand it better. But I think we are at a good point to stop.
We got 2 minutes. I have one thing.
I want to make a motion because I want to see where it goes.
Can I ask one thing?
No, Mr. Smith is first.
So I just want to say, whatever the next agenda is, whatever agenda we set this as a topic again, every single one of those organizations that has an MOU, signed or not, including the pickleball that wasn't referenced in this, but in the last report it was, all of those, what?
It was in this report.
Well, all the ones listed here that have agreed, signed agreements or not, to be notified of the next meeting.
You want me to notify them or the city recorder to notify
Well,
them?
I don't care who, Parks Department, somebody. But they need to know that this conversation is happening, and that all the MOUs are up for debate. Whether they're signed or not, they may be unsigned or well, I don't know what you're, well, I'll stop. But they need to know we're having a meeting.
My motion is that we suspend the implementation of these MOUs until such time as we gather sufficient information and make a decision that reflects that information.
We just gave them direction on the Ermitinger MOU, which I would like us to move forward on because we gave staff direction.
Okay, we'll exclude the
About what we
Ermitinger
wanted
MOU
them
for
to
that
do with
motion.
it. So-
Okay, I'll exclude the
I
Ermitinger.
think the Ermitinger Friends Group should be part of that
They
discussion.
will be. We've just asked staff for information to make it consistent, and then we can have the conversation, so we're all dealing with one document that doesn't say 15 different things. I agree with you on that point.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
I'll say no, because I think there was another motion happening, but
Well, do you understand what the motion was?
Yes, I understand.
No, I'm talking to Commissioner Smith. To suspend the implementation of the MOUs until such time as we gather sufficient information to make an
whether they've
informed
been
decision.
signed or not,
No, whether they make sense and whether they should be revised and presented in a different manner.
Do we have any signed MOUs right now that are current?
Oregon City Youth Sports
Yeah.
and
Okay, we do.
Oregon City
Okay.
Soccer we have signed
We have an
MOUs for
agreement, and I
them.
don't
We
think
are
we can
not
suspend that.
charging Oregon
Well-
City Youth Sports at this time, based on the conversations that we had at the previous meeting.
well, the pickleball group had was
They don't
in,
have an MOU.
no, I know
We
that,
don't
but
have
they were in
anything with them.
process of it, and they gave up on it.
They weren't in, we've never gotten to the point of
It
being
was
in
in the last
process.
report on this topic.
In process of anything. There's no agreement with pickleball.
No, I know there's not agreement, but you were working towards one. That was in the last report we talked about.
That is.
And they walked away because they didn't agree to what the city was proposing, correct?
They walked away a long time
So
ago.
that's an example of one group walking away. Oregon City Soccer was signed off a deal, and that deal was used to pressure OC Youth Sports to sign their deal, because if you ask them right now, they wouldn't have signed that deal unless they thought there was an option. They've all talked to us about that. Any one of you can ask any of the representatives from those groups about that. So, and that's why the Parks Foundation and the Ermitinger Group are sitting here waiting, because they're not falling for that, and they're waiting for this all to happen. So you had this is how, regional governments like say, oh, this city's signed off, hey, you got to sign this too. We know how it works.
That's
So are
not
you
what happened.
asking that all the MOUs, signed or not, are suspended?
Until such time as we gather sufficient information for a
Aye.
complete review.
So just to confirm the vote, Commissioner Mike Mitchell was an aye.
Yes.
Commissioner Rocky Smith is an aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
No.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
As I stated earlier, we have given direction on the Ermitinger MOU, and I would like to see the staff come back with the information that we requested rather than suspend it. So did your motion still include excluding that so we can see
They can pursue that direction even though it's suspended.
Well,
Madam
there
Mayor.
is no MOU with them. I've asked for them to come back.
Point of clarification, my understanding was the motion is to suspend implementation, not suspend working on an agreement like the Ermitinger
Right.
that we're already with. But
Right, that's correct.
Implementation, okay.
Implementation of it.
Okay, well, I'm going to vote with Commissioner Morrow and say no.
Motion passes.
Good.
Being no further business, thank you, staff. This is going to be a little painful, and I appreciate everything that you have done to date. You're working very hard, and I do want you to know from me that it's recognized. This is not an easy thing to go from charging nothing to say, hey folks, we got to charge, and that's why everybody's up in arms. That's not how we're doing it. Well, this is a new day. We're trying to be fiscally responsible. And there are going to be people out there, they're not coming forward. I've already heard from one person that says, well, why did they get it for free? And then I said, I'm not going there, so.
And we also need to realize this is not going to fix our parks funding issue
It's
in
just,
any
it's a
way.
drop
We're
in the
chasing
bucket.
nickels.
Right, so we're adjourned. Thank you.